to give advice as to, how to get into that. But I can definitely
So my
add with them
speciality,
as well.
my specialty is moving back to Africa because that's scary for a lot of people. Yes, it's an opportunity, but it depends. Are you happy in your Western job or whatever it is, or East, and where to move to and what career to kind of pursue? I think I see a lot of young Africans abroad as well as at home who kind of need that guidance.
Yeah, I'll definitely connect with you.
I think that's going to be huge. I mean, Southeast Asia, like the non-obvious places now, I think are where a lot of geeks are going to start looking. Like we were talking about with Jack Dorsey in Ghana, and if he's still going to go through with that or not. But I think geeks are going to start realizing that like the real interesting stuff isn't necessarily in the U.S. anymore. I mean, actually, there still is endless amounts of interesting stuff to do in the U.S., but I think like there's a whole extra dimension to it when doing it in other parts of the world. So it's anyway. Welcome back, everybody, to happy Monday. First of all, very happy Monday morning to most of you. It's a beautiful day in around Asia. Is it nice in Tokyo, Cheryl?
Lovely weather.
Yeah,
Let's do this.
it's lovely in Thailand as well. And yep, there's my goodness, this is truly phenomenal. The amount of inbound headlines people are sending in, and it's going to take us quite a while to get through it. But we'll just take it as we'll go as long as it takes. We'll just get through it, and there's a lot to get through. But let's start as usual and just let anyone want to jump in something hot burning that they want to share right off the top, popcorn style. Feel free. Going once, going twice.
I'll
Okay,
take on that Trudeau one for everybody now that's
go for it.
joined in. So, uh, here we go. The quick one is 5.3 billion for climate and advanced technology that's climate related for Canada, coming out of Trudeau today. So, anybody got some spice to add to that? So, Catherine McKenna, here we go. Huge announcement. Justin Trudeau commits to double climate finance to 5.3 billion, 5 years, including to tackle adaptation, biodiversity loss, biggest climate pledge ever.
Very cool. So I've got the
This is off the
headline up.
heels of the G7, right?
That's right.
Because the G7 just
Absolutely
wrapped up.
taking it along.
So we can
Yeah.
expect the other 6 countries to also start saying something, and I wonder how the US will compare.
So I've got a perfect headline here from CBC, which is Canada. And the headline is G7 meeting ends with a promise on COVID-19, climate, and mentions of China. Canada is promising to finance or donate 100 million doses to developing countries. There was a headline a few hours back that collectively the G7 are going to get together 1 billion doses, which is truly fantastic. And the G7 has wrapped up with pledges from world leaders to take urgent action on the COVID-19 pandemic, closely climate, and possibly China. The world's leading Democrats have committed in a 25-page communique. It is a French Canadian publisher, so they use the word communique, which I find endearing, to ending the pandemic and preparing for the future, as well as supporting a green revolution while dragging their economies towards recovery. On the issue of China, other than taking a hard line on respect to human rights, the language was decidedly and unexpectedly cool, given the rhetoric before during the gathering in the English seaside community of Carbis Bay. There is a reference to giving the developing world a safe, affordable infrastructure alternative to the Chinese financing, as we covered here, sort of an alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative that they're calling the Build Back Better World Initiative. But it does not appear as strong as the United States might have wanted. The group of 7 leaders also pledged to share more coronavirus vaccines with countries in need over the next year, up to 2 billion doses, including contributions made since February 2021. The final communique said on Sunday Canada's share is 100 million, a target signaled by the Liberal government on the outset of the 3-day summit. So it's a combination, as the headline says, about COVID, climate, and China. And I just tweeted this out from the Tech News Twitter account for those who want to read it in full, because we only just read the first little bit. So feel free to explore on your own there, as we always do with all of these headlines. We tweet them out from the Tech News Twitter account, which is very conveniently and somewhat mysteriously the first letters of tech news around the world. TNATW is the Twitter account, and that's just kind of magical how that worked out. But yeah, I see you flashing your mic, JT.
Yeah, I was
It,
just agreeing with the Twitter handle for
it's
anyone
Yeah,
who was
yeah.
mistaken or
These things
confused.
happen sometimes, right?
it's just
They
really
just
weird. I mean,
and Juana might have an explanation for it, but I don't know
there's
how this happens.
well, first you had the
It just
UFOs off the coast of California, and now you've got other strange, behaviors, and now you've got the Twitter account with the same first letters as the name of the room, and
how did
people
that
are
happen, Lakeisha? How did
people are
that happen?
I
people are
thought I
starting to
missed
wonder.
something. I don't know. It's
People are really
mysterious.
starting to really try to figure out how that could have happened, and it defies explanation. But we're also
Well,
noticing
if you
some.
press the green button, you get more insight, right? You as well as hair, as well
Yes,
as
well, if you want,
good health.
if you want to dive
Credit
down that
score,
rabbit
credit
hole,
score.
yeah, if you really want to explore the underbelly of what's really going on here, what you do is you click on the title of the room and you follow the Tech News Club, and that will plug you into the matrix. That will send you way deep down into the rabbit hole. Although we can't say for sure what's on the other side of the hole.
On the other end.
Yeah.
No, we'll all find out together one day.
Yeah, we're sliding down that slippery slope together as we speak. So, so thank you for that headline, and that's encouraging that there was some good news coming. It looks like it was a rather productive G7 meeting in Cornwall. So kudos to all involved.
Without China,
Yes,
with a lot of messages to China.
a lot. Well, yeah, it was a lot of, and it seems like, to be fair, that America was really trying to push a rather strong anti-China agenda as part of it. And I say that because apparently, as it was said here, that on the issue of China, other than taking a hard line on respect to human rights, the language was decidedly and unexpectedly cool. And what they, given the rhetoric before and during the gathering in the English countryside, and let me translate that for you. What that means is Joe Biden came in all hot on the mic saying, "Let's bash China at this party, baby." And the other folks there were like, you know what? Let's just keep it cool. And as it says, decidedly and unexpectedly cool, given the Uncle Joe's rhetoric before, during, and the gathering. And it's because by the way, there was a really amazing 60 Minutes Australian video that came out recently where they're trying to figure out why New Zealand is being particularly cool on their China rhetoric, and Australia isn't being so cool on their China rhetoric and has now paid the price, where China is now blocking exports from Australia to China because of their insistence on referring to human rights abuses. And if you use the word genocide, guess what? China doesn't buy your shit anymore. So New Zealand knows that. And so the Australians news outlet 60 Minutes hops over to New Zealand and watched the video, and before they arrived, they messaged the finance minister and the trade minister for an interview to 60 Minutes, which is a super prestigious outlet, and they said they were busy and couldn't accommodate an interview. I wonder why. I think they knew what the question was going to be from an Australian news outlet coming over to New Zealand, and they obviously knew what the question was going to be, is why are you not speaking more toughly on China with regard to genocide, as the rest of the Five Eyes group has, which is Australia, UK, America, and whatnot. And so nobody would answer 60 Minutes' emails and request a response for an interview. So he magically, the interviewer, which on video, marches right up to the Capitol and finds the Prime Minister on the steps of the Capitol and throws a mic in her face and says, "So, what about China?" And she's like, "Oh shit." And it's a really funny video. You got to see it. But yeah, basically it's as simple as that. If you mention the word genocide, China says, "No more. We're not buying from you anymore." And now New Zealand is caught between its allies and its trading partner. And the G7 Europeans, similarly, there's some economies that are largely based on exporting to China, and they don't know it's worth the cost, just to make the point. And it's and America's already made the decision. We're just screaming it from the mountaintops, and we're trying to get our allies to join us. And that's why there's that paragraph in that article from CBC Canada about how the rhetoric before and during the event was one way, and that the language was decidedly and unexpectedly cool coming out, because at the end of the day, the G7 didn't really want to turn it into. I think by trying to force this genocide, you know, narrative out of the G7, it almost overshadows all of the other things they wanted to achieve, like the climate issue and this new alternative to the Belt and Road. And I think they wanted to take a little higher ground and like compete by offering more rather than bashing China. That's my guess. What do you think,
And
Florian?
the focus also, they clearly said they want to investigate the origin of COVID as a message to China.
That's interesting. Without naming names, we're just that's where it gets really interesting. It's such geopolitics is so fascinating between these countries, and it's amazing how much it does seem like middle school between between countries. And I love Japan's role in this. And we were in Justin's room yesterday, and there's a gentleman, Ken, from Nikkei Japan, who's the international or American editor for Nikkei Japan, which, by the way, Cheryl and I, having lived in Japan, both of us, we know Nikkei is our favorite publication out of Japan. And he writes articles for Nikkei. And he made a great point, which during the G7, there was a photo of the Japanese leader and the Australian leader having breakfast together, all very friendly and smiley. And Ken from Nikkei was not surprised, nor was I. I don't think Cheryl is either, because now that China and Australia are on the outs, have broken up, now Japan and Australia can be cozy again as trading partners, and because Japan, frankly, hates China. So they've hated each other for a very long time and probably always will. So,
I
Japan,
think they are cordial.
yeah,
They have to
but
be, nice neighbors,
yes,
peaceful
but
neighbors.
Cheryl.
Oh, but there's deep history there.
Yeah,
That's,
but
yeah.
I'm sure Japanese love the Chinese consumer market, because Anna
Yep.
already built a online shopping site just for the Chinese market, by the way.
Yeah, A&A.
DNA.
Yep. They're. I mean, it's a really complex relationship between those two, and
Love and hate.
yeah, the Japanese are not going to come out loud like the Americans and be like rah 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 rah. They're going to be subtle and do it in their Japanese way. But it's fascinating. So thank you for this summary of G7, and all net seemed like wow, all of this vaccine pledges and climate pledges and economic development pledges, kind of alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative. To me, I think that's the interesting one, don't you, Cal? That was the surprising one, anyways. People didn't expect that going into it.
No, I mean, there's a plan B, right?
Right,
Potentially. And we
huge.
discussed this a little bit over the weekend, but with Justin here and stuff. But I've always been like curious. As we've been discussing this over the last 2 or 3 weeks, is for an African country, and they're all going to be in different dynamics with their existing relationship with China, and some of them in debt, and some of them actually having really benefited from huge amounts of infrastructure investment, etc. Mubana's on top of all of this. I'm totally sure about that. But it's just, what's the plan B? How what other options do they have other than just going down the line with China? And now potentially another option. But the discussion of the weekend was very interesting. I think Cheryl brought it up pretty well as well. The speed at which China works is just a completely different speed, right?
Yeah.
China's speed is so different in execution, in actually getting stuff done
Right.
on the ground. So just don't know if this coalition of countries with the US leading can be that fast to create a plan B. But that's an ongoing. I think we're going to have to watch this.
Yep. So,
yeah, that's something. So I wanted to kind of follow up with Cal there.
Do it.
So I remember during Obama era, there was this whole Power Africa initiative, which sounded very good, because as you know, Africa, I think we're at 20% of electrification, which is obviously the lowest in the world, and it's a huge barrier to industrialization. But at the same time, now, kind of fast forward to today, we still have those issues, but there's climate change on top. And I know, in previous rooms we've discussed a lot of stuff around green energy and how to transition. And I think there's two problems. There's one, the developing world, the developed world transition, right? China, US, Europe, how to move to green. But then there's also the next billion or two that are hungry to industrialize, but maybe they can do that in a green way, right? And that's where the problem gets really tricky. And so I'm wondering if Biden's kind of coalition and trying to build back better, where does Africa fit in as far as power? Because a billion plus people are going to need power, right? We're going to need factories. We're going to need, but what can we do to leapfrog and not make the same mistakes, whether it's like China or India, and actually, transition to green economy sort of much, much quicker. And so, yeah, I'm really keen to see that. I think if the US brings a really good power Africa to, with green energy, renewable energy, that would be amazing. Even if it takes a little bit longer, I think countries would take it more seriously as they see the effects of climate change. But otherwise, China would again steamroll and quickly build plants and other things if we're not careful. But yeah, that's what I'm watching for: a green power Africa.
Yeah, I love that.
And the good news is that's going to happen this decade, and it is going to be green. And it's going to be about a quarter of the price of doing it for fossil fuels. So it's going to bring a lot of people out of energy poverty. I'm actually working on a project with the X Prize called the Abundant Energy Alliance, which is in parallel with their Elon Musk Prize. It's not developed like the Elon Musk Prize is, but it's just at the initial stages. And the idea is to bring abundant, clean energy to everyone, everywhere. So it's not just for Africa. I mean, it's for the whole world. But the good news is that we'll address the fossil fuel issue in Africa by letting them skip over the mistakes we made. But in addition, it will be so cheap that it will reach far more people than you would otherwise be able to do if you stayed on fossil fuels. So that's the good news, and it's going to take a little while, but it's certainly unfolding as we speak. So it's pretty good. It's one of the positive stories out of all of this. Thanks.
Hold on. Speaking of Elon Musk and green power, Nalormi just sent in an article that I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, first letters of tech news around the world, from The Guardian. And the headline is, Tesla will resume accepting Bitcoin when it uses more clean energy, says Elon Musk. Musk announced that Tesla will no longer, back in May, Elon Musk said they would no longer accept the cryptocurrency for car purchases, citing environmental concerns. And that actually was sort of the moment when Bitcoin started to go south in terms of the price. And then Elon Musk has said that Tesla will resume allowing Bitcoin transaction when miners use more renewable energy. Here's the quote. When there's confirmation of reasonable, meaning 50% clean energy usage by miners with positive future trend, Tesla will resume allowing Bitcoin transactions, Musk, the company CEO, said in a tweet on Sunday. Bitcoin rose 5% on Sunday, adding after Musk's tweet. Musk also said that Tesla sold about 10% of holdings to confirm Bitcoin could be liquidated easily without moving the market. I guess that's the update for now. Yeah, the article also does say that Bitcoin fell more than 10% when Musk made that announcement back in May. But it then continued to fall. That sort of began the downward pressure that it's been under recently, and maybe this could be the beginnings of a reversal. And amazing to think that Elon can sort of set the trends for the price of Bitcoin in such a dramatic way like that.
Yeah, but it's amazing also that he uses this as a leverage to put pressure on people of greening or looking at green sources of electricity, which is a very interesting move because probably he might also cause, like he has done in the car industry, that people need to move to EVs. Now here the same might happen on on the cryptocurrency side, which is great at the end, I would say.
Well, there's a whole bunch of developments on the crypto side, and it's coming fast and furious, like in recent days, ever since the El Salvador announcement that they are, and it was very fast. It went from announcement to passing the law in the legislature within a matter of a day. And now there's been additional headlines from Cuba and Mexico and other South American countries that they're looking to get on board. And then in the past 48 hours, and we talked about it last when we gathered in our impromptu unscheduled special Sunday meeting yesterday, that now Jack Dorsey sent out a tweet that is truly complexing, and some might even say disturbing, where he was suggesting that Nigeria embrace Bitcoin, which they already do, and more than most, certainly one of the most users of Bitcoin already. But this tweet came out hours after Nigeria's central bank announced their own interest in their own central bank digital currency. And so we assume that Jack's tweet that Nigeria further embrace Bitcoin was a response to the Nigerian central bank announcement of having their own central bank digital currency, which you could then connect the dots and say, Jack is not in favor of central bank digital currencies, and in fact, he's a decentralist, essentially. When you connect those dots, especially when you connect the dots that he also, about 3 or 4 days ago, also said that Twitter, it's only a matter of time before Twitter operates in a decentralized fashion. And why would he put Twitter in, and understand the value and the importance of making Twitter decentralized if he doesn't also equally understand the importance of making the money decentralized? And now you understand why he would make such a somewhat outrageous suggestion to Nigeria that they embrace Bitcoin on the heels of the news that the government's announcing their own digital currency. And that, by the way, is quite a profound realization that Jack Dorsey becomes what's known in the crypto land as the Messiah, who's going to lead everyone to the decentralized promised land. Yes, go ahead.
Can I say
Tyler.
something? Can I
Yeah,
say
go ahead.
something?
Let's let Trust go. Welcome, Trust.
Hey, welcome everybody. I've been listening, and I said, okay, it's time I join on stage.
Welcome.
Right. So about the Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, Bitcoin, and Nigeria situation, right? So I don't know, like a lot of people might be aware of the whole Jack and the federal government of Nigeria back and forth around it started from last year, during when they had the protest, and the Central Bank of Nigeria shut down like the transaction, like physical transaction, regular transaction of currency to be able to fuel the protest. And then Jack tweeted around Bitcoin, then you guys should use Bitcoin or something of the sort, right? So that sparks outrage from the Nigerian government that, we're trying to regulate. Then I think early this year, central bank announced a ban on cryptocurrency and pronounced it illegal, right? So that in its own also generated a lot of buzz. So at the end of the day, then the federal government realized that it's almost impossible because the naira is totally crumbling, and it's also almost impossible to keep Nigerians out of the crypto markets. So I think they decided to say, okay, you know what we're going to do is that we're going to bring our own digital currency. Unfortunately for them, Nigerians on the flip don't even trust the central government to make that, one, efficient, two, efficacious enough for usage, right? And it will, like, how they don't trust the process. So Jack and the Twitter ban in Nigeria. So Jack tweeting that furtherly escalates that tension between the government and Jack on that level of Bitcoin, which, to be honest, I don't have a problem with, right? I think that it is important that Nigeria, of course, the youths of Nigeria have always embraced Bitcoin. Like, Nigeria is one of the largest population using Bitcoin, but the federal government don't like it, right? So I think that it is time for maybe the federal government of Nigeria to soften their stance on Bitcoin, because they really, the arguments necessarily might be valid, but we just need to look for ways to work around this that it makes sense for all parties involved. And I don't even also, for Elon Musk, sorry, since I'm talking too much now, but for Elon Musk, I don't think it is healthy, to be truthfully honest, to for one person to have a lot of powers to dictate how the market swings just by its weight. In as much as, he's all for green energy, I really am not comfortable with the fact that one person can just tweet and the market goes south or goes well. Trust is done speaking.
Thank you, Trust. Mabwana, you had a really interesting headline you shared even right before we opened the room today.
Yeah, it's on the crypto vein. So this weekend is very interesting to see all the Jack tweets, etc., which got me a little bit concerned that he was really trying to dictate what Africa should do on the crypto space. A lot of tweets, as far as I remember. I brought onto the stage, thanks for bringing on Jones, who's a fellow Tanzanian. It seems that over the weekend, or at least maybe it was on Friday, our president in Tanzania, President Samia, she has basically ordered the central bank to look into crypto. And I love her quote. I think it says, "New journeys through the internet." This new president of ours who succeeded Magufuli, who passed away allegedly of COVID. She's known for being quite poetic in all her speeches. So I'll let Jones fill us in on that because he knows more about the headline than I do. But I can imagine that she's been getting some ideas from all over the world. She's much more progressive. There was a startup act that's also kind of in play. Tanzania's kind of really coming out from the behind from our last president. So I'll let Jones jump in here.
Thanks, Mbwana. Thanks, Tyra, and everybody else. We've been a huge fan of this room, and so happy for Tanzania finally to be featured with its own headline. So, following everything that has been happening from El Salvador and other Latin America countries, and of course, what has been mentioned, not to repeat, the president of Tanzania yesterday, he has asked for our central bank, BOT, Bank of Tanzania, to start looking into blockchain and cryptocurrencies just to stay ahead of the game so that before the public catch on the fire. To be honest, there have been some few trades happening with young people in Tanzania, and I think this is a way for them to catch up. But not to mention, when it comes to blockchain, the Bank of Tanzania, which is a regulator, has already been looking into implementing what they call TIPS, the Tanzania Instant Payment System, and they're using a blockchain technology supplied by a company called Mojbox and Mojaloop, if I'm not mistaken, which is also funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it's a very interesting space to be, and there have been a lot of movements on the ecosystem as well. Finally, there are some conversation on something that Mbwana, myself, and some few other people in the president's office have been working so hard regarding the Startup Act for Tanzania. And the minister met with some of the players last week. And what's very interesting about this is the president sitting on now, she's been in power for the last 80 days, not even 100 yet. And the move that she makes really encourages players in the ecosystem. Thanks again, Mbwana, for bringing you up to stage. And Tyra, I would love to get the word attention into what's happening in Tanzania at the moment. And if at all we do execute the tips with the Mojaloop efficiently, there's a huge chance, because Tanzania is one of those markets that interoperability is key, with about 57 banks and 7 mobile operators, and all of them do have mobile money services.
And
thanks,
how many?
Mbwana and Tyler.
Yeah, Jones, of those mobile money, do any of those 7 currently able to handle cryptocurrencies? And then if they don't, and if they wanted to, how difficult is that? And could you help us understand the cultural context of this president and how much sort of actual real influence they have in making this happen? Because in some countries, the leader says things and it means nothing, and in other countries, it means an awful lot. And in this case, in Tanzania, the quote is, "The president of Tanzania calls on the central bank to prepare for use of a cryptocurrency. We have witnessed the emergence of the new journeys through the internet. My call to the central bank is to start working on that development." And I'm curious, what do you think is the likelihood that this will happen?
Oh, she means business. I don't think she's specifically asking for crypto to be allowed, same thing that was done in El Salvador.
Right.
But for sure, she's pushing for blockchain technologies to be used further. And if you're asking about the cultural context, she's a Muslim, we call her Mama, and she's very strict on certain areas. But the point for her to jump on the stage and announce this, it means the advising team, which is very young, dynamics, all went from like Ivy League school, and on her private office and also State House as part of her staffing team, they're very progressive. So for her to buy in the idea and actually include it on her speech, it means a lot. And I see if there's anything to be done, and the person to do it will be her, as she's also gaining some support for the upcoming election in about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, Mabona.
So back to Tyler,
Yeah, yeah,
if I may answer your question
yeah.
on readiness for mobile money operators
Yeah.
to jump on the space.
Yeah.
So regulation wise, they're not allowed. So you cannot trade with any crypto if you're actually licensed. But what tends to happen is a lot of traders in country, they would buy and sell on international platforms, and then when they need to cash in or cash out, they will use international remittance companies, and then in country use mobile money to convert cryptos into fiat currencies.
Got it. But what
Yeah.
would,
So
1 second, please? What would be the most likely wallet that people would use for crypto in this case? And because if it's the Cash App, which is Jack Dorsey's app, now we understand why Jack is pushing African countries to adopt Bitcoin, because he's the maker of a crypto wallet of sorts. And I wonder if it's usable in Africa. And if so, it's kind of, he has a conflict of interest. Yes, Jones?
Yeah, that is very true, and I know Cash
know
App
Cash App.
has been trying to integrate with some of mobile operators in Tanzania.
Whoa.
But
Say
that's
that
from
again?
friends who are visiting.
Wait, say that
I know
again.
for a fact.
Yeah.
I know for a fact there've been some movement as far as Cash App is
Oh boy.
integrating in the country.
Oh
But let's wait for
boy.
the news to break through.
Oh
You know, this is
boy.
not official, but when you have
Tyler.
when you have
we need the
officials
music.
from a certain
Oh
We haven't
boy.
had
country.
it for a while.
Oh
We
We
need
have
the
to have
boy.
the
music.
music.
No,
It's the
I'm
breaking
playing the
news.
breaking news music. We are breaking some news here,
Exactly.
folks. Oh, we figured it out.
Welcome, Jones. Welcome,
Tyler,
Jones.
we started this yesterday, remember? This is also
Yeah.
with the wallet, too.
Yeah.
And it's super wild because he could take world domination with
Right.
that. He could go
the
that
other
route.
piece to it is
It's
Sorry,
the
I
Lakeisha.
find this super interesting. Like there'll be a
the
battle coming up for the
Lakeisha
wallets
was...
in Africa.
That's right.
Sorry.
No,
the
that's
Mojo
right.
Loop piece ties back to the Singaporean central bank. So there was a headline about 2 weeks ago that the Singaporean central bank appointed someone to the board of directors. It was this same foundation, the Mojo Loop. So I just wanted to close the circle on that piece.
Thank you, Lakeisha. And Lakeisha, you just shared
Thank
a
you.
headline, just to mention it real fast, that in America, the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, has now banned...
No, the Thai SEC.
Oh, sorry, the
Thai
Thailand.
SEC.
You're right. I see it now. I didn't realize they had the same name. That's quite unusual that two countries would have...
Same but different.
Yeah, same.
Same but different.
Hold on. I have to explain. What the joke that Lakeisha just dropped. That was hilarious. So in Thailand, there's a very famous phrase of same but different, and everyone in Thailand knows the phrase same but different. And so that was hilarious. So in Thailand, the Security Exchange Commission is the same word, the same title as the agency in America, Security Exchange Commission. I said, "Oh, how interesting! They have the same name." And she says, "Same but different." That was hilarious. But anyway, so in Thailand, the Thai Security Exchange Commission has banned gimmick tokens, what we call shitcoins, and more importantly, NFTs, which are not really necessarily gimmicks, but that it will be interesting to see if other countries start banning NFTs. But back to the main meat of what we are discovering here, which is truly kind of ground shaking. And we did start this conversation yesterday, which is, why is Jack meddling in African geopolitics by even insinuating that Nigeria should embrace Bitcoin on the heels of the announcement that their government is announcing plans to have their own central bank digital currency. And now we think we have actually cracked the case. And I don't think anyone else has. I don't think there's a single article written on this yet. And I bet there will be in the next 48 or 2, 3, or 4 days. Let's see how long it takes the rest of the world to figure this out. Because May helped put in one of the important puzzle pieces yesterday, which is when she went to the Bitcoin conference, and this highlights the value of going to these types of events. It was revealed that Jack is working on a hard crypto wallet, which is a USB key where you store your cryptocurrencies off of the internet in a very safe environment, separate, so that no one can hack it. It's in a physical device that you wear as a keychain or you hide under your mattress or whatever. And similarly, he also has his own fintech company called Square, which has a product called the Cash App, which is a digital wallet, which also accepts digital currencies or cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So the question always in my mind was, is when we were just now on stage, just to unpack what just happened, Mabwana invited Jones on stage from Tanzania, where the headline today is that the Tanzanian leader, the president of Tanzania, is calling on their central bank to prepare for the use of cryptocurrencies. Okay, great. Now, how would that actually manifest and work technologically? Because they use what's called mobile money, which is kind of a payment system by the mobile operators, which is how much of Africa exchanges money, through cell phone transactions through the mobile operators. And the question was, can they handle Bitcoin? And the answer is essentially no, they can't. So, okay, well, who's going to handle these crypto exchanges then? And Jones is now suggesting he has reasons to believe that the Cash App, Jack Dorsey's Cash App, is in conversations to facilitate those transactions. And now we understand why Jack got so excited, so much so that he even implied he's going to move to Africa, namely, was it Ghana, where he just opened a Twitter office. And now we start to see why Jack is so excited about Africa, because if Africa starts to embrace crypto, as Tanzania is now, the president is just said, and he's now suggesting that Nigeria do as well, and we're seeing it start to unfold in Latin America, and it could very likely, Africa could play a critical role if South America, Central America, and Africa all start embracing crypto, and notably Bitcoin, and the Cash App can play a significant role in that. And Jack does, as we've seen in other instances lately, in the past few days, he's expressing the importance of a decentralized Twitter. Then we have to wonder if he's also a fan of a decentralized Bitcoin and the real power that goes along with that. And we have strong reasons to believe that he does believe that. Then shit gets really, really, really interesting of if Cash App will be decentralized for Africa and South America, and he becomes truly he will be called the Messiah, the crypto Messiah. You'll start seeing headlines about that in the next few days. And this crazy conspiracy theory that I'm ranting on, you will start seeing headlines about this in days to come. Yeah?
Tyler?
Yes.
Tyler, it's a very interesting thing that you keep on using the word Messiah. Is Dave in the audience at all? Can't really see because of the sun.
Which
There's
Dave?
him outside. Dave McGinty. Dave.
No, he's not yet.
Let's ping
Okay,
him.
so ping him in because it's super interesting. Because remember what we went down the rabbit hole about Revelations?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you keep on joking about crypto Messiah, my friend. But let's not joke too heavy with that. Because, he could be the one, this could be the opposite of the light and dark. Do you know what I'm saying? Jack Dorsey could be the possibility of that person. Because if the EU is kind of going down this trajectory of revelations where they want to be in this sort of, in the negative way, let's just kind of play it out in a sort of a really sort of dark, light, dark sort of way. And Jack Dorsey wants to see the decentralization, then you now see that battle that is spoken about in the last book of the Bible, as well as the book, the Upanishad, I don't know if it's Upanishads or the Sutras, where they talk about the age of Kali Yuga, which is the age of when we kind of come out of this illusion, this Maya, this projection of what we think the world is, and we enter into the age of Aquarius. So in some ways, it's very interesting to see this because literally, Tyler, he was wearing a tie-dye shirt with his beard, and I was just like, what the... So for me, I was kind of feeling the same vibe. I was like, this is a little bit creepy.
That was really interesting. Hold on one second,
Tyler,
Chris. Hold that thought.
This ties in.
Hold that thought. I just want to highlight what Amay is saying because she was at the Bitcoin conference and there was a few videos and photos of Jack Dorsey who showed up on stage. And this is notable. This is really notable. He showed up on stage in a tie-dye t-shirt with a flowing hermetic beard of a kind of a Gandalf-like beard and in a tie-dye shirt with sandals and in a very barefoot hippie neo Jesus like presence and a very uncorporate, like the absolute polar extreme of what a corporate person
So
would want to
Ahmed,
project.
do you think it's a disillusioned individual that is thinking he's Jesus, or do you think
No.
There may be a deeper
No,
story
I
behind
actually
it.
think, no, I believe it's the latter, Cal. I absolutely believe it's the latter. No doubt it's the latter because the way he managed himself, he was a professional. When that woman spoke the way she did and she asked that question, he was going to go down that rabbit hole. It was the event producers that were not allowing it to sort of be derailed,
he
and he was going
almost
to answer.
he almost seemed eager at the opportunity to have that conversation.
You're correct. But
Right.
they stopped it. And
They
they
stopped
also
it.
threw
Well,
her out.
because they, as the conference, were worried. Oh, clearly Jack's not going to want to engage in that conversation. And Jack's like, no, absolutely, we can have that
Yeah, they made an
conversation.
assumption. They made an assumption that
Right.
Jack would be
And
uncomfortable, but Jack was not uncomfortable.
let me bring in my own personal professional context into that as an event organizer, and I'm the moderator at my own large conferences where I have audiences of thousands of people and the biggest tech CEOs on stage, and I'm interviewing them, and I have to do this very delicate dance of asking difficult questions, but not too difficult that they won't come back as a speaker next year. You see the problem here, and that person who was interviewing Jack Dorsey was in that same situation that I've found myself in countless times of, that somebody in the audience is shouting the really important question, one of the really important questions. And oh shit, that one's a little too difficult because if I ask that, now Jack's going to hate my guts and I can never do conferences again because no speaker will ever trust me to ask them questions on stage because they know I'm going to throw hard balls at them and literally hit them, as the baseball metaphor. We have what are called softballs, where you throw a nice little ball to the interviewer and they can hit the ball and make a home run, or I can throw hard balls. And then there's something even worse, which is actually trying to hit the batter with my ball. Like I'm literally trying to hit the pitcher in the head with the ball. And that's what this lady in the audience was doing. She's like, here, take this, Jack Dorsey. I'm going to throw this ball right at your head. And he's like, throw it. Let's do it. And he, in response to the hardball questions, was not dodging the balls. He was saying, throw it. Let's have this conversation. I welcome the question. And the interviewer was like, say what now? Like, you don't want that question. That question's aimed right at your head. It's trying to knock you out. And he's like, no. Please throw the ball. Ask the question. We can have that conversation. I have no problem. And
that makes a lot of sense. That
right.
makes a lot of sense.
He's now actually encouraging, and he seemed genuinely accepting of the question, because what he really wanted to say was, we're going to take this shit decentralized, baby. And that's his answer to her, because her question was, you're meddling in elections. You're banning people, is what she was saying, because she herself has been banned on Twitter. She herself has been banned, as our friend in the audience said yesterday. Was it not Design Juju? The other lady, Gabby, who was also at the event, mentioned, well, the context is the lady who was throwing that fastball at Jack Dorsey's head herself is banned on Twitter, and she's yelling at Jack, you're banning people, you're silencing people, you're controlling the media and the narrative. And here's this, I'm throwing this right at your head. I'm trying to knock you out, Jack Dorsey. And Jack said, let's talk about it. We need to have that conversation right here, right now. And the moderators of the conversation were like, no. We don't want to have that conversation. Jack's like, yeah, actually we do, in my tie-dye shirt and my long flowing Gandalf beard, because what I really want people to understand, and he then revealed 48 hours later in a tweet, is we're taking this shit decentralized.
Yeah,
and
Tyler,
then
but
no one will ever be banned ever again in a decentralized Twitter, which I think he wanted to tell her. Yeah, go ahead.
Tyler, he did say it. You see, here's the thing, Tyler, let me back that up a second. Unpack that little piece. You got the news 48 hours later. He did talk about Blue Sky right after they threw her out.
Yep.
Do you see what I'm saying? He did answer it, so you're correct.
Yep.
They threw her out, but he did tell everyone in the audience, he basically answered the question eloquently, that it was not fair. He basically, in essence, paraphrased that he understood it, and that he also recognized that the only way to be able to do that was to decentralize it, and that they're looking at decentralizing Twitter and at the project called Blue Sky. And he said it. So he told everyone in that audience, but she wasn't in there, she left. But she was also someone it was very interesting, because when you see everyone who was in the 5,000 people inside the conference space, the 5,000 chairs, that were no empty seats at all, just an FYI, no comments about COVID, because I tested negative 2 times, so I'm fine. But the interesting thing about it is the people that had access to that were definitely the people that spent over $1,500 to $2,000 just to get into that event. and arrived at least a day or two early. So everyone in there, those 5,000 people sitting in there, were from all over the US and Europe that really made the trip out there to listen to this. So obviously, as a mod, as an event producer, you want to make sure that you don't lose those customers for coming back to the event as well. But it was interesting because they immediately tossed her out, and he went on to continue the end of his piece, which was in fact what he shared, which showed up in the news 24 to 48 hours later, which was that he was considering and is considering a decentralized version of Twitter, which the project is called Blue Sky, which is interesting because that also alludes to why Akon and Jake will be meeting in Costa Rica in July, because I think your narrative around LATAM and Africa is a big deal, because when you look at the regions, and now I'm going to really share something about Latin America that's really interesting for you, Tyler, because you talked about globalization, right? There's one location in Latin America that you will be safe from a nuclear fallout, and it's Uruguay. It's Uruguay. Like if we ever, God forbid, got into a nuclear war, Uruguay is the one place where you would survive that nuclear war. And guess who has compounds there? The Bushes. A bunch of people, wealthy people, have compounds in Uruguay. And now you start to look at the narrative of what you were also speaking about, globalization, the migration patterns. This is a much bigger narrative than people are willing to accept. But it's bigger. And it's a game of power. It's a power game. But then we could go back to Revelations and say it's just a battle between light and dark.
Hi, this is Michelle speaking. Yeah, thanks, Amy, for unpacking that. I just have a question around that decentralized Twitter. Has it touched upon how things like trust and safety will be handled
No.
in that context?
Well, Michelin, the trust and safety. Yeah,
Exactly.
the trust and safety, Michelin. It's Michelin, right? Is it
It's
Michelin?
Michelle, but that
Michelle.
works too.
Okay, sorry, Michelin. Because it's French, right? So I just, anyways. But moral of the story is try to pronounce the name properly. Um, when you talk about trust and safety, of course, that is trust and safety in what context? Because the security of the blockchain with decentralized ledger is in fact that it's going to be something where there's a consensus, and as Tyler stated several times, Yip and Yannicka, because he knows I go down rabbit holes very deep sometimes, so he kind of pulls it together for me, and I'm grateful for that. But basically, when you look at the decentralized computers that are approving or kind of making sure everything's correct, they're like all over the world. So there's no way for them to cheat. There's no way for
I
them
just
to
want to
do
mention,
something
I'm aware
incorrect.
of the structure of a blockchain with the
So
different blocks
trust
and
and
so on.
safety in what
So
context then?
trust and safety in the context that on the social media platform, I assume that most people want to feel safe. And sometimes the good guy feels censored because sometimes the system flag things that may not need to be flagged. And
Correct.
some people feel silence. But how do we
Correct.
handle the bad guys? So some people, and I understand the freedom of speech narrative that goes with that decentralization, but I think that's also it could be a real issue, and it could be a horror movie
Right.
if there's no trust and safety moderation.
Correct. And I believe that this is where, it's super funny that you said that, Michelle, because you're absolutely correct. However, we're still so early adopter, and these are questions that have to come up, and people that have skills and talents like yourself, these are the individuals that really need to step forward, and instead of saying, like, what is this, and being skeptical, but putting their skills forward and saying, I can help solve this problem, and this is how I can help solve it. Because the reality of the blockchain is we need people like you, Michelle. We need people like Tyler. We need people like Akil. We need people like Cal, because you all have talent, and that's what's needed in a new innovative space, because you understand the processes. You've been in different contexts, and there'd be more of an understanding of the processes that need to be aligned with, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think
why.
it would be. I think it would be interesting because I think most people are not aware that the things you don't see is because of that trust and safety moderation. You could see
Correct.
things like literally beheading, people being beheaded,
But TikTok
or
is doing
child
that.
pornography and all of
But
that.
TikTok is doing that.
Oh no,
TikTok.
TikTok is. I just want to say that that aspect of being able to identify the person trying, because on a single every hour someone is trying to put horrible content on those platforms,
Correct.
and that's millions of people trying that. So the fact that there's a great trust and safety, obviously, people still complain, but there's a huge amount of work done. That's why you don't see, and excuse my language, but child pornography on your feeds. But
Yeah.
trust me, people are trying to upload this kind of
Michelle, this
content.
is a really
This okay.
Let me just say one thing. Two things. This is a very interesting topic because there was a beheading. When I was in Miami, there was a beheading on TikTok that I was trying my best to get. I was on my TikTok and I was trying my best not even to watch it, meaning it kept on showing up in the feed. I'm like, what the fuck? Pardon my French. But I was just like, what is this? Because in Europe, TikTok, you don't get that. So I do get what you're saying about trust and safety. But the unique part about this is that this also can open up a use case, which someone who works for someone who's a developer reached out to me from Clubhouse that actually wants to solve the problem of trust and safety when it comes to the police officers and the policing of the United States, like how these police are allowed to get away with what they're doing in marginalized communities. And basically, we want to be able to find a way to solve
you got
that.
way too much wind going on there, so we're gonna pause that for that's all right. So
Sorry about that.
and we're
Okay.
one second.
Can I say something
Hold on,
quickly?
Victoria. I'll turn it to you. But we got to bring it back to the original point of all of this, which is the Bitcoinization of the world, which is underway. Both South America and Africa are picking up steam with regards to. I'm starting to see a swell of momentum now. It'll be interesting to see if tomorrow there's another country somewhere in South America, Central America, Africa, or others pushing for Bitcoin, because then it will be a very clear indication that this is a global kind of a movement underway. And if Jack Dorsey starts making tweets to push it, help fan those flames, that will be very interesting as well. Let's keep an eye out for that. So Victoria first, and then Trust. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say really quickly that it sounds like you're trying to take a centralized approach to decentralization, because that's essentially what you're asking for. You're asking for a higher authority to come and snap things out of the network, and that's not going to work just by the inherent nature of blockchain. And just really quick, agency is a really big thing, and so is oh God, I'm having a brain fart now because I'm on the spot. But agency and accountability, those things are extremely important, especially when it comes to CP. If everything's on the blockchain and it's available for everyone to see, then who's posting the CP, and guess what? Cops at your door. So we need to think about this in a decentralized way. That's all I want to say.
Just to clarify, I wasn't
Victoria's
refuting anything. I was just asking. It was a question, so out of curiosity.
Trust.
I think just
Okay. So
I think what Michelle brings up,
can,
as the momentum for Bitcoin grows around these countries and decentralization grows at the same speed, the question that Michelle brings up becomes a parallel discussion, and then collectively we solve these things. So I think it's a very good point, Michelle.
okay. So here, right? So, and this is what I think to start from where we segue into. So understand that for the whole trust and safety thing that I think Michelle spoke about, I think that is really important. I think that is why it is. I think it's really not nice, or I don't know, that the individual who was trying to ask Jack a question was actually like put it out, because that would have brought a whole lot of conversations around this, and it will probably be clearer. I'll be able to ask more questions, and then we'll be able to know things, that the plans and how things are going to be done. Because at the end, like, Twitter will most likely suffer for it, because people would no long to be in a platform that like guarantees absolute freedom. Like, no freedom is absolute anyway. So if you're doing something that is not safe, it's only nice for that to be regulated. But for the Bitcoin and the developing countries and Africa, right? I think that the Bitcoin is a revolution to process, to the fact that if you look at most developing countries, the currency, the tangible currency that they currently spend, it's not as much. It doesn't give them a whole lot of value, right? So Bitcoin give them that closure, give them that extra to be able to purchase internationally with similar like buying chest or purchasing power, right? That is why you see that maybe it's not maybe as popular in developed countries, because their currency is quite good, yeah?
Right.
Like the pounds, the dollar, and all of those stuff. So they can afford to continue using their tangible currency and not care a whole lot about digital currencies, right? But for developing countries who need that war chest, that's purchasing power, they also need to find alternative. And that is why I think Jack seize that loophole and say, okay, you know what? I think the people who actually need this Bitcoin, who need this digital currency more, will be developing countries, and that is where it will be easily bought into. Because imagine Nigeria, you tell them that, oh, one naira is equal to $500, right? And you're telling me, oh, I can also use the Bitcoin to get something and to be equal. I definitely will go for Bitcoin, right? So Jack identifies this in developing countries and say, okay, you know what? I better sell this idea to people who are most likely to buy it and pressure their governments to buy into it, instead of trying to push in developed countries that necessarily don't need it as much. So I think that that is maybe the wisdom that Jack has seen, and decided to invest more in developing countries like Ghana and all of those stuff, and really interested in Nigeria being the most populated country in Africa. And that's why he's really, really interested. He knows that if Nigeria buys into it, more often than not, Africa has bought into it based on population.
That's a good point. Thank you for that. I want to ask James, can you chime in here on if it's possible for South America, if Jack Dorsey is the Messiah that we're now pontificating that he is, or wildly theorizing that he's going to try and drive a decentralized Bitcoin and in South America and Africa, how wild of a thought is this?
Hey, good day, everybody. I don't think the idea of a decentralized digital currency, full stop, I think is entirely viable, right? The whole point here is the holy grail is to replace cash, and if you can do that through a decentralized manner, there's nothing to stop you in my mind. We've got all the technology. It's just a question of user acceptance. Unfortunately, I think too many people think about money as banknotes and coins and maybe gold bars or some other precious metal, when in reality it's a bunch of zeros and ones sitting in a bank account, provided you've got access to financial services in some server in some unforgotten place of a country, right? So for me, decentralized currency is totally viable because it's just the same as cash from my perspective. It's just represented in technology, and honestly, it's just human attitudes and behaviors that will really drive the adoption. It doesn't matter whether it's Dorsey or anyone else. It's human behavior that needs to change. My sense is, from a technology perspective, all the tools are there. When we have the ability to instant message each other, when we've got technology like blockchain, etc., that avoids double spend problems, when we've got the ability to, effectively pass tokens between each other in encrypted ways, it's no problem at all. We have all the technology in a basic smartphone to be able to make it happen. And I see nothing other than somebody driving the customer education agenda and someone providing a technology asset that establishes trust very quickly, right? Someone reminded me the other day, what's the Latin word for trust? Credit. So honestly, it just comes down to education and knowledge. The technology is there. And whether it's, a president of El Salvador or Dorsey, somewhere it's going to sit, I think, between a trusted digital giant or a government pushing it out to its citizens. And we already see that in China. We already see that with people like Dorsey. The future is here. It's just not uniformly distributed yet.
Thank you,
That's all there
James.
is to it.
Hey, let me chime in
Sure.
there if I may, Tyler, on the centralization of the DeFi, because I just made a tweet and tagged
Okay.
TNATW on the significant moves that China's PBOC has made. There were quite a lot of debate about how the digital currency of the digital yuan is going to compete with the big boys that have huge invested interests like the Alipay and the WeChat Pay that are really like giants of
Yeah.
their own, not just in China but all around. And PBOC actually comes out with a statement last Friday and said, guys, look, forget about competition. Okay, all these big boys are going to thrive together with us once we get the digital yuan, the digital RMB going. And a similar kind of note, although not exactly as explicit as the PBOC, is being put out by the Bank of International Settlements. As we all know, there are different central banks that are working on, a digitized currency, a CBDC, and they're all coming out and trying to put a framework around it so that there is less and less hopefully the trust element is being built through guys, like this PBOC and the BIS. So I tweeted the PBOC bit. I can probably try to dig out a bit more on the BIS and post that as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Hey,
Tyler, this
yeah,
is
do.
Shaheen. I'd like to chime in
Go
on
for it. Yeah.
this if I may. Okay, so three points really. One is that one problem with decentralized things is that they end up being too centralized. And likewise, things that are supposed to be centralized are in fact too decentralized. So my point is that it is really difficult to get to the bookends of the spectrum. It is really, really difficult. And I think it requires some really deliberate technology and policy to make it happen. Second, most of the solutions that we have that are centralized, you could make a case that they started out in a decentralized way and they ended up being centralized because that was the most convenient way of getting them done and the trade-offs were acceptable. I think we now have technologies where those trade-offs may in fact pan out differently. And that's why I think there is excitement. The third one is that the decentralized way to ascertain or acknowledge whatever is through voting. Now, voting really works well, but it takes time. And I think if you want to really shield people from information weaponry, which is really what bad content is, it is a weapon. And to defend against it is going to be an obligation for everybody. So the only way to really shield it is to not expose yourself to all of it, to start with the more trusted communities like we are on this call, and then gradually expand as you develop the trust and say, okay, I know that one, he's got enough votes, she's got enough votes. That's kind of the way I see it. Thank you.
Okay, so there's been an absolute onslaught of fantastic headlines that people are sharing that I want to jump into some of these big ones. So we're going to ship on to other topics here. Give me a second here. The first one is that we were talking about the G7 when we started an hour ago, and how they were relatively light on China, seemingly intentionally. However, the Chinese embassy in the UK, where the event's being held, has responded angrily to the communications coming out of the G7 accusing the G7 leaders of interfering and political manipulation after criticizing Beijing over its human rights record in Xinjiang and Hong Kong. And the group of the seven takes advantage of Xinjiang-related issues and engage in political manipulation and interfere in China's internal affairs, which we firmly oppose. And now I realize why they felt it important to do it, because Australia is essentially being economically slapped on the wrist for referring to genocide. And so if all the large democratic countries all together say, hey, you're doing genocide, now somebody like New Zealand, anyone, if basically if everyone starts saying it together, then China can't respond to the entire G7 and say, okay, we're not going to do trade with the seven largest countries in the world anymore. Obviously they can't do that. So by unifying and telling China, no, actually you are doing genocide and we're all going to say it together, now you can't punish Australia anymore for saying what they said. And so now I understand why the G7 felt it was necessary to get together and say it. It makes sense. So that was an interesting tit for tat. Apple has announced the winners of the 2021 Apple Design Awards, even though we're only halfway through 2021. I will thank you to whoever sent this in. I'm now tweeting this out from the Tech News Twitter account, as we do with all of these headlines, which we do. You should follow. It's at TNATW. And so the winners are, there's actually a new category called inclusivity. Winners in this category provide a great experience for all, supporting people from a diversity of backgrounds, abilities, and languages. And the winner is Voice Dream Reader. And it's the Voice Dream Reader does the best in class text to speech for vision impaired folks. And there's a game called Hollow Vista, which looks truly fantastic. It supports a wide variety of accessibility features, including an option for motion control. And then they do the awards for basically all kinds of categories of interaction. And you can see like what Apple feels is the best designed app around interactions and all kinds of new ways of designing. And I have to say, there's one particular winner that is near and dear to our heart here, and as a regular fan of the show, the winner of the social impact is none other than our friend Be My Eyes from Denmark. So congratulations to Be My Eyes for winning the Apple Award for 2021. Yeah,
Wow,
it is
wow,
big.
that's big.
His
No,
name is called
he's
Hans, right?
Hans.
yeah,
Hans, right?
yeah, that's
Can I
Yeah.
Hans.
quickly
Yeah.
say something? Okay, so for me, yeah, because I'm very very interested in accessibility technology because I'm visually impaired, like I'm blind. So for the voice dream reader, right? It's a really amazing app, which I totally agree with Apple on that. And for the Be My Eyes, like the Be My Eyes is really awesome, to be honest. And one app, I don't know maybe how it, I don't know, but it's Cine Eye. I don't know why. I don't know how Cine Eye maybe they make the list, but Be My Eyes is also like a wonderful app. Like it's always you. It comes in handy for people who are visually impaired like myself, who necessarily need to maybe go out, need assistance here and there, and you just alone and you can easily get someone to help you out with daily needs. Like it's really amazing. I'm really excited for Be My Eyes, excited for voice dream reader. But I don't know, Cine AI is really also an amazing app. I think that we should also get like
Yeah.
a
So
really
Trust,
good
have you met
mention.
Hans? He joins us here usually every day. The maker of Be My Eyes. Yeah. That's
Oh
why we're
really? No,
very.
I haven't.
That's why we're so excited
Oh
for him. Yeah,
really? I
because he's.
haven't.
This is like the first time I haven't seen him in the room, so I just pinged him to see if he'll join us, and I just want to congratulate. Yeah.
Hans Jorgen
He was
Wilberg,
with me in
exactly.
Please,
Cal.
11
once
minutes.
Yeah,
once
and this. Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
sorry. Once he joins, can someone just let me know? Unfortunately, like
Yeah.
Clubhouse haven't like got to that stage where he announces someone who joined. But when
Yeah.
once he joins, please someone let me know, please.
We will.
I
Yeah.
sent him a
But this
WhatsApp.
Yes,
weekend,
thank
Faraz, his Capital Club, actually put Hans on the stage and uh, um, gave him a stage to share his entire journey, which is so helpful and
Yeah.
inspiring for a lot of
And
people.
then that's why I said I've called out Hans several times. On stage. The first time he came in, I got emotional because I'm such a huge fan of what he does. And I couldn't be more happy to see Apple officially recognizing him in this way.
He's officially being his app is officially being used at Dubai
Oh,
Expo
cool.
2020. By the way,
Other massive headlines kind of shaking the internet at the moment. NVIDIA's CEO says we are on the cusp of a blockchain and NFT-enabled metaverse, and that is kind of a mind-blowing statement. NVIDIA makes the chips that sort of enable blockchain in some sense, and also AI development and the metaverse. And by this statement that we're on the cusp of a blockchain and NFT-enabled metaverse is truly exciting because it goes back to what we were talking about. I wonder if it will be a decentralized metaverse. That would be truly wild. You think a decentralized Twitter is interesting, and it raises all kinds of very difficult questions around compliance and controls and etc. A decentralized metaverse where it's not just little snippets of text and tweets; it's people walking around in a virtual, kind of world. When it's decentralized and it's not under the control of Facebook or any government or anybody, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. It's almost a virtual anarchy type system. It's a world, naturally there will be some sort of controls, but it'll be interesting to see how that world develops. It's an interesting thought. So just, yeah.
Well,
Sorry, somebody was chiming in there.
yeah. Sorry, I accidentally like left the room when I meant to unmic. So that's what I've been
Uh-huh.
spending most of my time building. That's why I've been so quiet in the rooms, because I'm literally building a decentralized metaverse in WebXR. And here's the thing, it's just a freaking website, right? Like, this is what Web 3.0 is going to be. It's going to be this 3D decentralized metaverse where all of our websites are essentially like our own virtual homes. And a lot of, bigger companies, they want to keep their walled gardens, like Facebook and Horizon. I love Horizon. I built my prototype in Horizon like 6 months ago. But it's still a walled garden. But eventually, you're going to be able to just go on your Oculus browser, go to blah, blah, blah.io, and visit your friend's house. And you're going to have a portal that's going to take you to Rec Room. And then another portal that's going to take you to Crypto Voxels, and so on and so forth. This is something that a lot of us have been working on for a long time. So it's funny for me to hear like someone to like this to be like news because I'm like, oh shit, what I'm building is like in the news now. Not specifically what I'm building, but
Yeah.
the essence of what I'm building. Yeah, watch out for that. Web 3.0. You're going to be visiting your friends'
Yep.
websites and
Victoria's a great person to follow if you want to keep up to speed, because she hosts fantastic rooms on the issue along with Michael on a weekly or so basis. And you can see those rooms by clicking on the title of this room, where you'll see the Tech News Club, which you absolutely should follow, and scroll through all of the upcoming rooms. You'll see there's EdTech and MedTech and VR and all Bitcoin and everything. So please do follow the Tech News Club to get notified about that. Some other fantastic headlines at the moment is Amazon details a new warehouse robot called Ernie and Bert, which Americans who grew up in the 70s and 80s are familiar with Ernie and Bert. It's a charming duo on Sesame Street. And what a funny names for two robots. Amazon shared details on 4 of its new warehouse robots it's testing to improve worker safety. In May, Amazon announced a goal of reducing recordable incident rates by 50% by 2025. It plans to invest another $300 million into safety projects this year, it calls them. And there is a video of Ernie and Bert in the tweet that we sent out, and I'll resend it out now so that everyone can get a look at Ernie and Bert. But of course, Ernie and Bert are going to be taking jobs away from Bob and Sarah. Is my
Hey, I'm gonna be in the Amazon. Don't
I'll
worry
be
about
chilling
me.
in the Amazon box over here, Ernie. And Chris, sorry, I cut you off earlier. There was a point you were trying to make.
I don't want to go down. It was basically a long story short. You're talking about
Yeah.
shrooming in high school and stuff. My experience, my profound experience was, I said to myself, or shrooms told me, what if money didn't exist? What if they created it before you were born to enslave you? And I kind of think both the trees talking to you and that money premonition are kind of
Yeah, well, there
kind of
was another
true.
message that I got that I didn't share, which was the concept. The trees told me about all of the man-made things that we have, like money and time. That the trees don't have deal with money and time, and the nature, the concept of the clock, like it's 2 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock, it's whatever. It's like the nature, the animals, they don't play that game at all. And there's no, time is a man-made concept, and so is money. Essentially, nature and animals don't deal with money or time. And I was like, wow, that's kind of heavy stuff for a 19-year-old. And again, those were very foreign concepts to me, and at that moment. So anyway, Samsung designs stretchable second skin that tracks displays or tracks. It's essentially adding a screen to your actual arm. Get this. I mean, you got to see this. It's truly wild innovation here that hopefully the Twitter account will let me share it again so that you can see what I'm talking about. It did. So if you go to the Twitter account at TNATW, you will see Samsung's new designed stretchable second skin that tracks and displays your heartbeat on your skin, on your arm, and turns your skin into a display. As crazy as that sounds, but you have to see it to believe it. And now you have your arm is a display. You don't need to walk around with eventually a phone. Maybe your phone will be embedded. The inside of your wrist will work as a display, and you can see the early versions of that right now in the tweet that we just sent out from the Twitter account. Thank you to whoever sent that in. Speaking of Amazon a minute ago, Amazon pushes, and many people sent this one in, Amazon pushing more into top tier sports with French soccer. Amazon is seeking sports rights to boost Prime Video. And this is related to one of the very big meta conversations that we keep circling back to here, which is these digital platforms like Amazon, like Netflix, are buying up all of the content because they are the distributors of this digital content. You are paying these digital platforms like Amazon, and as Amazon, who by the way just bought MGM Studios along this point, you have to decide as a consumer who you're going to pay for all of this juicy content. You can pay for Amazon Prime, which includes shipping, but also includes a lot of content. And they just bought MGM Studios, which includes a lot of the movie titles and TV shows that you watch. including The Apprentice by Donald Trump. And the Amazon and Jeff Bezos may now be the owners of all of the outtakes of one Donald Trump using the N word repeatedly, as is often said at Hollywood parties. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And no doubt they will drop those bombs at the most opportunistic time in Trump's reelection campaign. However, back to the main point, Amazon is now getting into sports content because the way it works is if Amazon acquires the rights to the super big football games or soccer games or baseball games, then they exclusively own that content, and that content's not available as part of Netflix or Disney Plus. It's only available to Amazon Prime members, and you can now understand it's a battle for the content and who's going to buy and own all of the sports games. And if you don't have an Amazon Prime membership, no sports for you. Good luck. Have fun. Good luck finding it on Instagram because they own all the rights to all of that sports content. So somebody's going to start buying up all of the sports team content, all the rights to the NBA games and NFL games and the cricket games and all of that, and the race cars and all of that, and the horse racing or whatever. And it's going to be a content battle to own all of the movies, all the TV shows, all of the upcoming films. And that's really what's happening is these big platforms, Amazon, Netflix, and to some degree Apple, are running to the film festivals, the Tribeca Film Festival, the Sundance Film Festival, the Venice Film Festival, where all the filmmakers are who are looking to get their films financed, their future films financed. And guess who's writing the big checks? It's no longer the movie studios. It's Netflix, Apple, um, Netflix and Amazon are writing these checks to finance all of the future film development to get those movies on their digital platforms exclusively. And whoever can get the most exclusive, best content is going to get the most subscribers. And those subscribers then send in their money every month, $10, $20 a month to the platforms, and the cycle continues. And you can see it's a land grab. It's a big race to see who can get the most subscribers. Whoever gets the most subscribers has the most money to fund the most content. Whoever has the best content gets more subscribers. You can see why it's such a critical, time-sensitive race to take over this entirely new layer of media. And by the way, you're going to see that spread into news as well. And by the way, Amazon already bought, which is it, the Washington Post. Someone's going to buy the New York Times. Someone's going to buy all of these legacy news apps, and those will be owned as well. And they'll be within these what are called walled gardens. So in Amazon Prime, the content in there, you don't have access to it unless you're an Amazon Prime member. It's a walled garden. So is Netflix. If you don't have a subscription to Netflix, you don't get to see inside of Netflix's walled garden. And they're going to take all of this content, all of this news, all of this is now going to become part of these walled gardens. And that is the future. And it's, mark my word, someone's going to buy the New York Times and put it in their walled garden. All of the content will eventually be part of these walled gardens. And you're going to have to choose which of these walled gardens you want to subscribe to. Yeah, so interesting headline on. Go ahead,
Can I chime in? Okay, so this trust, yeah. So I honestly think with this future, I think it's dark times really for content and for consumers. I think it's be like a really really dark time because I think that the best way this can work because at the end of the day, what you end up having, for example, let's say for instance, Netflix has rights to the EPL to show EPL matches, and for example, and Amazon has rights to show the La Liga matches. What happens is you have to then force an individual to subscribe to multiple streaming platforms, which I think it's terrible, especially for consumers, right? I think what is necessarily doable is having a platform. I don't know, something like Dark Communications or DSTV, or I don't know what's obtainable in various countries. Do is there is a hub where all these contents, like all these streaming platforms, are domiciled on. For example, you create a platform where there is the Netflix, there is the Amazon, and there is the whatever. And I pay single fee to this, and they sort out how they get their money from themselves instead of me having to subscribe to different content or different platforms. I think it's really, really terrible because I want to be able to subscribe to just one thing and maybe get other things from that one thing. And I think that that is really possible if a company can come up with that necessarily and get these people and they sort themselves out how they will like do their sharing formula and all of those stuff. I don't think, just like I don't know other terrestrial TV and radio stations do, I don't think it's nice to now have you buying all contents, then I have to subscribe to Netflix, at the same time subscribe to Amazon, at the same time subscribe to Disney Plus. I think it's terrible moving forward on that level. And this monopoly is really terrible, to be
Well,
honest.
there's a
Just going
whole
for
other
monopoly.
side to it, which is the VR worlds that we're talking about and these metaverse worlds, which arguably might be so much more engaging, and people who use it know what I'm talking about. That the VR world, you'll never start watching soccer again, because once you go into VR, it's like you are the character in the Marvel movie. And once you're an actual character in the Marvel movie, there's no point in watching the Avatar TV show or regular film where that you're sitting on the couch as a passive observer. Being part of the character in the VR story in a three-dimensional, emotionally overwhelming way is so profoundly game-changing that these VR companies have no interest in buying up this two-dimensional content. Facebook is not trying to buy up films because they're focused on VR. And yeah,
Tyler, can I share something
yeah,
that will validate that point that was
yeah.
just so personal for me yesterday? And Victoria, too. You'll love this. My son and I are watching the NBA tournaments in the US, the National Basketball Association. We've got the finals and we're into basketball together. So yesterday we were watching the Nets versus uh, whatever Nuggets, right? And we're watching it, and suddenly my son, who's 16, says, "Wow, that's almost as good as a video game. That just look how clear it is. Look how that is." And I was like, and then he said that's kind of weird. He called it an oxymoron. I'm not sure it was, but he said like that's weird. I just said the video game was, and I said, yeah, I know that's very interesting. You should, when you're old enough, you should join tech news around the world.
So there,
That's funny.
That's
yeah,
real
yeah,
reality.
we call it AR, actual reality, or what's the word? We need our own new terminology. So, by the way,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Real
RR.
reality.
So there's a headline right now from Blue.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, Tyler. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. So just on the whole virtual reality issue you talk about and you being the players, right? So what happened to then? I don't know if like discussions have been made on how maybe this can be monetized or people who actually gain from the talents, right? Maybe soccer and all of those stuff. What then is left for people with talents, right? Who needs to maybe sell their talents and make money from it? So what is left for those people if I can be really induced in just acting up in a virtual reality, then what happens to people who want to sell talent? I think it's a
yeah.
slippery
Well,
slope that I don't know.
I
But
have a
okay,
couple
maybe I'm
headlines
just
that
being
are going to help
pessimistic.
answer that. Watch this. So right now, in Bloomberg, this just came out today. Virtual singers headline multi-billion-dollar industry in China. Shanghai's Henyan Liu is the first Mandarin-speaking Vocaloid. The company seeks to fuse Liu with AI to interact with fans. Liu New Year's Day performance was sparsely attended by pop star standards, with only about 300 people in the audience. Then again, she wasn't there either. To actually see Liu, one of China's rising superstars, some 150 million people tuned into the live stream on their TVs and mobile devices. The teen singer is a Vocaloid, the first Mandarin-speaking computer-generated voice then synthesized pop star. China is the latest market to embrace Vocaloids, the most extreme mashup of technology and music. Through they developed in Japan and casted their influence on K-pop. China has the biggest potential audience, with the estimated 390 million people watching virtual idols, they call them. The accompanying animation industry, which includes TV series and comics, it's 35 billion in 2020, according to the media company. And they talk about how these Vocaloids are wildly popular in Japan and Korea and now China. And they are virtual celebrities, virtual performers. They're not actual real people. They're not even real singers, and they're performing to huge, growing fan bases. And you can understand how this is a threat to the likes of Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera, etc., as we create these virtual singers and performers and dancers and whatever. That hold that thought. That is one very interesting thought, and no doubt that will come to the West. It's huge in Asia now, and this is one of those.
Some of us
It's
remember
already
Of course,
Max
here.
Headroom.
But here's the thing. There's a huge
yeah,
Vocaloid fan base here in the US already. I used to
yeah.
cosplay as
So
Miku
yeah, but that's you
Hatsune.
mentioned a Japanese performer, not coincidentally, because it started in the. This is one of those things where Japan is again 10 years ahead, and they're doing something that seems very crazy that doesn't seem applicable to the West, but it will come to the West 10 years later, and we're now about halfway through that process. So in another 5 years, we'll start having these virtual massive performers instead of Justin Timberlake and Justin Bieber. You're going to have some artificial AI generated what they call Vocaloids. So hold that thought, because Sam Altman, who is the one of the co-founders and former leader of one of the largest and best AI organizations on the planet called OpenAI, just sent out a tweet a few hours ago saying, prediction: AI will cause the price of work that can happen in front of a computer to decrease much faster than the price of work that happens in the physical world. This is the opposite of what most people, including me, expected, and will have strange effects. And what he's saying is AIs are really good at automating what the person sitting in front of the computer does with the computer, and the AI will eventually replace the person sitting in front of the computer, and the computer will just do it all by itself. And we saw a headline yesterday around that exact point of people designing chips for AI are now being replaced by the AI itself. The AI is doing a better job of designing the chips that it needs better than the humans are doing. And so it's not a coincidence that Sam sends out this tweet kind of at the same time that headline came out. Again, let me read it. Prediction: AI will cause a price of the work that happens in front of the computer to decrease much faster than the price that happens in the real world. And this is the opposite of what most people, including himself, expected, and will have strange consequences. And what he's referring to is the fact that white collar jobs, including doctors, including lawyers, including accountants, all of these white collar jobs that happen in front of a computer screen are eventually going to get replaced faster than the physical world jobs. And somebody named Noah Smith, who's quite popular on Twitter and in this sphere, his Twitter account is No Opinion, very cleverly named Twitter account, says this is what's called the Josh Gans thesis. The idea is that AI will do for white collar work what machine tools did for blue collar work, and that the AI is a large intelligent machine, and machines automate things, and it will automate out the white collar jobs of sitting in front of computers. And it's a really wild concept. And so it will be interesting to see if the physical how this will play out between physical athletes and physical artists and performers and the computer jobs of people sitting in front of computers, and how quickly those are automated. And I think it's going to be quite a bit of both. He's right, though, that the AIs are not going to be good at, although we just had that robot article at Amazon. And by the way, Bert and Ernie, the two new robots at the Amazon factory, were 2 of 4. There's also Kermit and Oscar the Grouch. So they have the whole Sesame Street team now working at Amazon. These 4 new robot types that you can see in that article we just sent out. And Sam Altman, who sent out this tweet, which already has tens of thousands of likes and whatever. Sam is very much and partnered. By the way, Elon Musk was his partner in OpenAI, just for context of how smart Sam is on these issues of AI. I don't take anything Sam says about AI lightly. So when he says it's going to the prices, the value of white collar jobs is going to drop faster than the value of quote unquote blue collar jobs, is quite an interesting tweet and prediction to send out. So another interesting tweet that JT on stage just sent out is a Google. It's actually an Apple patent, that a new patent that Apple is filing, that allows you to control your smart watch, your Apple Watch, with gestures on your hand, because the Apple Watch will have sensors that can detect what your left hand is doing. If you wear your watch on your left hand and you make gestures with your left hand, your watch will know what you're doing with your left hand based on how it feels around your wrist. So if you make a clenched fist, it will know you're making a clenched fist. It can use that as an input, like, call my mom when I make a clenched fist, or by making your hand flat, it knows your hand is flat and do a different subject. If you click your thumb and your pointer finger together, it knows you're clicking. If you click your second finger, that's a different click. If you click your ring finger and your thumb, that's another click. And if you click your pinky and your thumb, that's also a fully different click. So now you have 4 different types of mouse clicks on your hand alone. So your hand quickly becomes much more useful than a mouse. You can see how this works. And it's not only going to control your watch, it will also control your laptop or your VR goggles. And now you understand how truly wild this patent is, because the watch becomes an input device for your VR and your laptop and the watch itself, and your fingers become the replacement for a mouse, and you can do quite a number of gestures with your hand in that way. So thank you for sharing that, JT. I just tweeted that out. And other really groundbreaking tech, this one even more so. If you thought that was groundbreaking, the headline from Reuters right now is, "This is not science fiction," says scientists pushing for what they call neuro rights. Scientific advances from deep brain stimulation to wearable scanners are making manipulation of human mind increasingly possible, creating a need for laws and protections to regulate the use of new tools. Top neurologists say a set of neuro rights should be added to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the UN, according to a neuroscience professor at NYU's Columbia University. 5 rights would guard the brain against abuse from new technologies: rights to identity, free will, and mental privacy, along with the right of equal access to brain augmentation advances and protections from algorithmic bias. The right to identity. You need the right to your own identity and the right of free will and mental privacy. You need the right to your own thoughts. The privacy of your own thoughts that's why he says this is not science fiction. Neurologists are not, and there it is right there. This is not science fiction. We are doing this in a lab. We are doing this in lab animals successfully, according to the neurotechnology lab at NYU, Columbia University. You need the right to your own thoughts. Let's leave you with that happy dystopian perspective for the moment. And here's a related tweet right now, 10 hours ago on Twitter from Microsoft CEO Brad Smith. Brad Smith just tweeted 10 hours ago, and I just retweeted, and the Washington Post just wrote an article about what Brad Smith just said in his tweets. Gag orders to investigate the media, and Congress must stop. Our democracy rests on the fundamental principle of government transparency. Secrecy should be the rare exception, not the rule. What is he talking about? He's talking about the fact that in the articles that we just were talking about here for the past couple of days, where it's now been revealed that the Trump team under Bill Barr and the Department of Justice were forcing Apple to reveal data about their political opponents, Adam Schiff, and the leader of the House Intelligence Committee, who, not coincidentally, was doing the investigation about Russia's meddling and interference with the Trump administration's election campaign. And so while Adam Schiff and the House Intelligence Committee are doing a deep investigation into Donald Trump's collusion with Russia, or Donald Trump was simultaneously doing an investigation into what's the guy? My brain just froze. Adam Schiff. So they were investigating each other simultaneously, and of course, there was the House Committee. The House Intelligence Committee is investigating Trump's Russian collusion, and Trump is investigating Adam Schiff simultaneously, which is the abuse of power. He was forcing, through the Department of Justice, Bill Barr did these subpoenas to Apple and Microsoft. Now we now know it was Apple and Microsoft simultaneously that they were saying, hey, we want all of this data from you. And now you've got Brad Smith, the CEO of Microsoft, today saying on Twitter that to investigate the media in this kind of way, because they were not only investigating Microsoft and Apple, they were also investigating the journalists who were reporting the outcomes of these investigations and these unnamed sources. And so you have the CEO of Microsoft, and I imagine Apple also did make an announcement yesterday, although it wasn't from their CEO, Tim Cook. Although you can imagine he approved the communication that Apple sent out yesterday, which is very similar to what Microsoft CEO is saying today, is this shit's got to stop. You are fundamentally breaking the system of democracy. And they're right. That is what was happening. By forcing Microsoft and Google and journalists to reveal their sources, that's what Big Vladdy Daddy does. That's what Turkey does. That's what despots and authoritarian regimes do. That is not what America does, yet America was doing it under the previous administration. And now you've got the CEO of Microsoft and Apple and the journalists saying, hey, y'all, you didn't know what was happening, a few months back. But when Adam Schiff was investigating the Russian collusion, the Trump administration was forcing us against our will to reveal data about Adam Schiff and trying to sink that investigation. And why would Trump try and do that exactly? Why would Trump be so concerned? What might Adam Schiff find in this Russian collusion that is so necessary to jeopardize America, the longest running democracy on the planet? Why did Trump feel it was necessary to jeopardize 200 years of democracy? For fear of what? What was he worried that Adam Schiff was going to find exactly? Little thought for you to consider there, especially Trump supporters. And on that note, here's an article somebody just tweeted in: Netanyahu out as Bennett is in as Israeli marks the end of an era. Similarly, Mr. Netanyahu was essentially boosted out because of his abuse of his powers. And wow, what a coincidence. He was claiming that his election was rigged in the process of counting the votes and whatnot in a very similar way. And it wasn't until the international media started making comparisons to Netanyahu's claims and Trump's claims of rigged elections, yada, 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 that they realized how embarrassing it is to kind of do that kind of maneuver. And they corrected themselves. And long story short, Netanyahu's out. Democracy saves the day, lives to see another day. And I would just make a very personal plea here. As people of the world, as citizens of the world, wherever we happen to be, we are going into these headlines that we cover about how technology is advancing exponentially, way faster than we are biologically or politically. And that's going to be a big problem because we're now getting into gene editing. We can't control that shit. We can't even control social media. Social media's got us on the fucking ropes, right? Social media is baby shit compared to fucking gene editing. We are opening a Pandora's box that we need to understand.
You're
Now,
getting me so excited.
Now,
You're
here's my
getting me all
point.
wound up here.
Because we are about to enter an open Pandora's box of things like genetic editing and all this crazy technologies that we are not going to be able to even begin to control. And again, we can't even control social media and the impacts it's having on the planet. So my point is, we as the citizens of the world need to become very careful about the people we elect as our leaders. Here's why. Because when shit gets crazy, and it's about to get crazy, y'all, you're going to get people running for office who take this very strong man, I can handle this shit, tough guy stance. And people are going to fall for that. And we have fallen for that. And thank God, in the case of Israel, they're now showing the tough guy with all the answers who starts manipulating and abusing this power, because what we're starting to see a pattern here is these tough guys, these tough talkers who've got all the answers and only they know how to fix it. When they get in the office, they seem to have a hard time leaving office. Just ask Russia, just ask Turkey. So what I would suggest is when we start looking at who we can elect as the democratic nations of the world, I'm just applying to my friends who happen to have the luxury of living in democratic countries around the world. When we consider who we vote for, let's just factor in that if there is a tough guy running for the office, let's just consider that tough guy might not want to leave office. And let's just put that as a hygiene. And when the Republican Party says who our front runner is going to be, or whatever your party is, and whoever they have running on their ticket, let's ask ourselves, okay, should we not disqualify people who have wouldn't we disqualify somebody who knows absolutely nothing about nothing? Yes. If the person was an absolute imbecile, of course, we would not let them run. Okay. Well, also, if it's likely that they might abuse their power, shouldn't that be a red flag also? What I would encourage everyone to consider is if it's possible that the person running is possible that they might eventually overstay their welcome and abuse their powers and get corrupt, let's factor that in to the votes that we cast for these individuals in these democratic elections, because I'll end the rant there. But anyone have a art? Yeah.
Tyler, no, I mean that you obviously you get that. That's why I hang out with you. You get me wound up. You have a point of view. You get it out there, and I think that's why people
Well,
love being in this
I'm just
community and listening to you as well.
I haven't
So
really
thank you for doing
I
that.
haven't really
Yeah,
walked
no, I
out on the
mean
political cliff previously. Am I
no, I get that, but you're making a point about
right?
understanding power, right? And the
Right.
seduction of power, right? Which is my lifetime journey lesson, right? Through from a corporate perspective, particularly, right? The seduction of power and the seduction of, I've seen successions in CEO, boards and I see that in startups and advice, where you get these kind of power struggles and the smartest people become dumb because power
Yep.
just gets to their head, right? And in corporate
Oh yeah.
settings, that's
Oh,
even more.
that's a
So,
hold on,
sometimes
Cal. That's a
some of
great
these
point. Let's pause
corporates,
right there. If this
yeah,
isn't unique to politics, this happens, and this is why Cal has lived this. We've seen this in the corporate world. It happens all the time. These strongman types are all over the corporate world, and you're going to encounter them in your own office, and you get these, people who feel, oh yeah,
headhunters
oh
love
yeah,
them.
oh yeah.
Headhunters love them because they move from company to company. Just watch the ex-GE guys moving from, went to 3M. I saw that, close. Like, I'm not going to name names, but CEO coming into 3M, completely demolishing the innovation culture, leaving. Another guy comes in who is not as addicted to power, unleashes 3M, share price goes up, twice two times, because it's unleashed the innovation gene again. But the headhunters put the strong, person in place, and they move from place to place, and mostly they move around, right? And so, but it's the idea that a single person is going to solve everything, and that person and these people will come in and say they'll solve everything. It
Yep.
happens in a corporate world. It
Yep.
happens in a startup world, right? And sometimes eluded by this idea that a founder, we got to keep the founder because it's a strong person. There are some founders that have huge amounts of passion, etc., but they're not addicted to power. They're addicted to their mission, and that's a
Oh,
subtle difference, right?
subtle
But
but
no, there's
profound.
a lot
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not subtle.
Okay.
It
Can
is
I,
not
can I, can,
subtle.
Go ahead,
okay.
Trust. Well, you
Can
in
I say something?
Nigeria, you want to make a
Oh, okay.
comment about what's happening in Nigeria this week?
So, so, so what you're saying really hits home, right? Being in Nigeria, and of course, like, so you understand. I also think that it is down to, especially talking from the corporate world. That's who was, I think it's Kayla or something. I can't remember the name now. Spoke about. I think it's down to people not understanding human psychology and thinking that the brash way is the way to get people to do stuff, right? It's the way to get people moving. Let me give example of Trump here. The people who necessarily Trump supporters think that, oh, being brash and being mouthy, it's strong will, and that's the only way you can get people to work. And unfortunately, that doesn't turn out to be the case, right? So you find out that people who necessarily want to think that they can handle all things and they can do things by their might and by bringing the sledgehammer for disciplines, you find that these people end up missing the point at the end of the day. But people who get successful are people who understand psychology and diplomacy, but to the point where people who you elect or people who lead corporate worlds and people thinking that not being diplomatic is you being cool, that becomes a really really problematic world until we are able to find a way to orientate people on human psychology and how you can get people to work and you can get people to do things and how you can make things work in your favor without necessarily being I'm trying to mind my language here without necessarily being a stupid person, quote and unquote. I think at that point in time, that is where we can get down to conversation. And like I said, like it hits home in Nigeria, of course, like having this president and that we think that was a general. And you say, oh, general be able to take care of terrorists. Here we are. It's worse than he came in. Oh, he's a retired military officer. He handled this, he handled that. And here we are, it's worse than he came in. So it's clear that strong and being mouthy necessarily doesn't lead to great success. But we need to find people who are really, really diplomatic and people who are ready to have conversations when conversations are needed to be had and to bring solutions to some problems.
Thank you, Trust. It's an interesting paradox because in difficult times, I think people are attracted to people who are taking a very strong position and project a lot of strength because we're in very turbulent times. The building is falling. We need somebody who's has projecting lots of strength and confidence. And when in reality, yeah, go ahead,
Tyler,
Frost.
may I say something?
I think Tyler, I think it's
Sorry. So I actually wanted to address what you were just about to come to.
No,
But
that's
why
it.
don't
I
you
mean,
go
I
ahead
think you
and
got my
finish
point.
first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So what Cal said, and me and Cal, we always get along on things around the corporate world, and I think Cal understands me a great deal. And as a man of the corporate world, and I hope I hope the people that work with me or around me consider me a leader. But in a corporate, there's a very thin line. There is a very thin line, and it is a very tough one to figure out because you have to treat your corporate as a community. You have to plead to lead with compassion, right? That is how you do it. However, however, there will be certain instances where you need to demolish and destroy because you're building a community, and by harnessing a poison pill that comes in and you as the leader of the community think is a danger, even though maybe 5% or 10% of your community think that you did the wrong thing, in the favor of that community, you end up looking like a Trump. I hope that kind of makes sense. So it's a very, very thin line there. But and sometimes even the entire corporate world looks bad at you. But sometimes you have to make that stand. And sometimes you have to look like the bad guy as well. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Kieran.
sorry. I was just trying to raise the point. I think look with these millennials, we are moving from this kind of capitalism, shareholders capitalism, right? So 20 years ago, you had this, we've seen that in finance industry as well, where people, same team would be moved every 5 years with a big, guaranteed bonuses for 3 years. You're talking about 10 people, 100 million, moving up from one bank to the other, doing the same thing in the name of digital transformation. That started early 2000, and you've seen that going around the financial industry. I think that's purely driven by this kind of stakeholder capitalism, right? I think now we are moving more towards this kind of this shareholder capitalism. Now we're seeing this. There's a lot of this kind of people are moving towards this kind of stakeholder capitalism, where that the companies instead of optimizing for the short-term profits, seeking long-term values and needs of the shareholders and society at large. I think it is coming kind of mainstream in certain industries, especially within the ESG and the way the companies are looking at how they should be investing. It is coming, but it's probably not at the speed that we're probably
So
hoping
there's
for.
just a couple other really interesting forward-looking headlines at the moment. One coming out of VentureBeat saying that AI dominated the scientific output in recent years. UNESCO report shows that, and UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, today unveiled its latest scientific report. The massive undertaking, this year's report totals 762 pages, compiled by 70 authors in 52 countries over 18 months. So we're going to read the whole thing right now, baby. Grab a chair. Let's dig into this 762 pages. Or I could just read the best part, which is the fact that basically a huge majority of the patents are now in the scope of AI. is really taking over a lot of the scientific output, quote unquote. There's just been a tremendous uptick in the research of AI. Long story short, so I just saved you, a month worth of reading that huge scientific report, and you're welcome. And that's what we do here at Tech News Around the World. So one of the other articles is about from Science Focus, and thank you to whoever are sharing these. My apologies for not crediting by name, but we when I tweet them out, you can see who tweeted them in. One of the inventors of the internet, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, thinks his creation, the internet, is out of control, and he has a plan to save it. Computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee is best known as the inventor of the World Wide Web, and his plans to help us reclaim our personal data from Silicon Valley. Well, geez, Tim, that's maybe you should stop by Tech News Around the World, where we talk about that every day. And that is a huge, huge issue. And in this article, I won't read it all, but you should. So that's why we are tweeting it from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And you can read all about how one of the inventors of the web feels about the fact that our data is now out of our hands as the people, and how he plans to put it back in our hands. A truly interesting article. And another interesting one here is that just like AI is booming in terms of innovation and the number of patents that are being applied for and whatnot, this article from Forbes that I'm tweeting out says that 10,000 companies now, a total $4 trillion in value, in the space race. And it's not just SpaceX. Elon Musk's SpaceX might get all of the headlines, but there are now a huge number of companies who are competing to open up an unprecedented level of human access to space. The U.S. now has a lot of space-focused companies. How many do you think, Cal? How many space-focused companies are there in the U.S. alone? In the U.S., not globally.
Let's say
Anybody
150.
else? Take a guess. Chris? Anyone else?
3,000.
Take a guess. Anybody?
500.
The whole ecosystem,
The
right? So that's
U.S.
got to be, I'd say, I'll go the other
5,000.
Yeah,
extreme.
stop Googling. And the answer is 5,582. And Karen Googled
Karen
it. He's
Googled it.
always on the
Wow.
Google. So there's now 5,000 space companies in the U.S. alone, 10,000 globally, worth $4 trillion in value. Interesting that half of them are in the U.S., 5,000 of them. And there's a beautiful pie chart of them and all the different categories that they fit into. All 10,000 logos crammed into an image. It's quite a hilarious image. So I will retweet that out from the Tech News Twitter account that you can easily find at TNATW. And if you put your thinking hat on, you'll notice that TNATW, our Twitter account, are also the first letters of Tech News Around the World. Let that sink in for a second. Just marinate with that crazy.
We should do a sub room on that.
What are the odds of that one? That's just is a true wild coincidence. Causation, correlation, you be the judge. One other article here that we touched on yesterday, and I'm happy to say we got some really interesting insights from people on the ground in China about this interesting headline that's going around in the West, which says the brutal working conditions behind China's tech boom, which is known as 996, which is popularized by Alibaba's leader, Jack Ma. And 996, very simply, is the idea that they work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 hours a day, 1 day off a week. And that's the Chinese standard in the tech industry, 996. And now it's being reported rather widely in the Western tech press that people are saying, we're done with 996. We don't want to go back to 996 after COVID. And then we talked about this in our last meeting, and there were people from China on stage who said what this is really about. The phrase that they use internally, if you translate it into English, is lying down. It's two Chinese characters, one for laying, flat, and the other for flat, actually. It's like
It's actually called tan ping. Tan ping actually
lying flat. The second
flat.
character in Chinese or in Japanese is the word for flat, and the first character is the word for kind of reclining flatly, to put it literally. And I know that because it's the same in Japanese as it is in Chinese. And so anyway, And so lying flat is the new approach in China. And it implies the tech journalists are taking this as a signal that, people don't want to work 996 anymore. They want to kick back. They want to lay back, as we say in California, kick back. And in reality, that isn't, these tech journalists in the West are actually misinterpreting what the Chinese folks are saying when they mean lying flat. It actually means something quite different. So my tech journalist friends in the West, I would encourage you to learn a little Chinese or Japanese, and so that you can actually understand what the fuck they actually mean. What they mean is Alibaba and Jack Ma. Jack Ma noticeably, essentially, was disappeared when he was about to IPO Ant Financial and have one of the world's largest IPOs in IPO history. And the Chinese government said, "Not so fast, Jack. Hold the phone, Jack. No IPO for you this year. This world's biggest IPO. Yeah, we've been thinking about it, and after all, maybe it's just better that you just disappear." So he did. Jack disappeared, and the IPO was shelved. No IPO for you, Jack. And since then, Jack's been taking a very low profile, and that's a hint to what this really means. He's been laying back. He's been kicking back, laying flat. And the Chinese tech industry themselves, and by the way, it's not just Jack Ma. It was also the CEO Pinduoduo, the world's fastest growing startup. Literally, the world's fastest growing startup called Pinduoduo. The CEO mysteriously resigns, and so did another leading tech company in China, also mysteriously kind of laid back and kind of resigned. And what is this all about? And by the way, all the tech companies are being, kind of a lot of regulation being cracked down, a lot of big fines, billion-dollar fines, et cetera, et cetera. Jack Ma's laying back, Pinduoduo's founders laying back, and that's why the tech ecosystem in China is now, ByteDance,
ByteDance.
TikTok's founder was the other, also one of the world's fastest growing company, also resigned and is now laying back. And so this laying back, what it is it's about not getting squashed like our friend Jack did. It's about not standing up and pushing, because Jack Ma was the very American-esque maverick of jumping up and down on stage with a mohawk and a guitar, jumping, thriving, reaching for the sky, as he was known to do. And everyone followed along. And it created incredibly, massively huge and a huge number of super huge tech companies in China. And now that Jack Ma got the shit beat out of him, now they're thinking, hey, let's lay back. Let's kick back. And that's the cultural context of the layback movement. It's let's lay low, keep your head down, don't jump around on stage with a mohawk like Jack Ma. Don't go on conferences and say that the banking system is stupid in China like Jack Ma did, because you're going to get the living shit beat out of you. And you're going to get your big IPO dream, the biggest IPO in history, your big golden day in the sun is going to get ripped from your hands by the government. So let's not do that. Let's not do what Jack Ma did. Let's lay back. Let's do what Jack's doing now and lay back and kick back. So it's a little bit. Yeah.
Tyler, can
Go
I
ahead.
just share a context from
Yeah.
my experience in China, just on how those kind of messages get disseminated? So they get, number one, there's a big statement like the one, Jack Ma, etc., right? Absolutely big one. And then it's conversation after conversation over dinner after dinner after dinner. It cascades down all the way to the regional businesses, to the city mayors. And I've been in those discussions on other things that they wanted to push through from the center, right? And those discussions starts happening. And then, like little conversations, long dinners, oh, by the way, this is what happened to Jack Ma. This is what happened. Oh, by the way. And then the message, this particular message, filters down. If you notice, a lot of very senior, strongly opinionated Chinese leaders are also laying low on this platform recently, a lot more than before, right? And that continues. It's just a very, very smart, and I'm saying this with respect, it's a smart, sophisticated way to implement things, right? That's how China Speed works. China Speed is speedy at times, and then conversationally kind of deep at times. It's a very, very strong way that they operate, and so you start to see behavior change happening in subtle ways and in very explicit
So
ways.
that there's.
I think
Go
that
ahead.
just on
Hey,
what
Dave.
Carl said quickly, I think that's really balanced, Carl, because you've worked there, you understand the culture. I think like sometimes if people are popping into the room, it seems like we're all at China, and then other. I just think, it was a good balanced kind of go really fast, but then the cultural sensitivities, the whole like
I'm just
structural
giving you the
stuff.
mechanism by which it operates that I experienced,
Yeah,
right? I'm not giving you a judgment on
yeah,
China in that perspective. I do have my perspective though, that I do think overall it does the CCP has things that it does that are very unethical. So
yeah.
I'm just being open on that. I'm not saying,
No,
but
sure.
I do respect the methods by which they work.
And it seems like the whole world is under like an overall 1984, thought police type thing. I.e., we've just had the same frame within America talking about the elections there. So it's like, I suppose the point that I'm making is that there's a macro point of like there's censorship all over the place. But and I'm not defending China or any of the stuff that goes on because the Uyghur stuff is not good, blah blah blah. But I just think it's balance is what I'm saying is was the
Dave,
actual whole
we're
point.
glad you're back here. I think we pinged into the room, right? And the reason we pinged you was because we were on the topic of Jack Dorsey as Jesus, as the Messiah. And how the hell did we get to that conclusion? Well, because he showed up at the Bitcoin.
We thought
Yeah,
Messiah and we
we
thought
thought you
Dave.
would like this little
No way.
this
I'm
rabbit
not
hole
saying
that we
better.
found, and we encourage you to. We're trying to pull you down this rabbit hole, so please start the slippery slope if you would. Here's how it goes. Jack showed up in Miami at the Bitcoin conference wearing an actual tie-dye T-shirt and a Gandalf beard, a graying Gandalf beard. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you can see the photos. We tweeted them from the Tech News Twitter account. And he sat very calmly on stage as somebody from the stage who was banned on Twitter was screaming in the front row, "You're banning people, you're silencing people, you're just, meddling in all kinds of power dynamics, and, I'm throwing this softball straight at your head because the interviewer's throwing you softballs for you to hit home runs. And I'm going to throw you a softball right at your damn head and try and knock you out, Jack." And Jack very calmly said, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Like for real. Like I'm not even bluffing. Like for real, we should talk about this. And the interviewer kicked the lady out of the room and changed the topic because he thought, well, I'm not going to throw the softball at Jack's head. He flew all the way here. We're lucky to have him as a conference organizer. Holy shit, I can't believe I got Jack Dorsey to speak at my event. How lucky am I? So I'm not going to, now that he's accepted, the last thing I'm going to do is throw a softball and try and knock him out here on stage in front of all of these people who are, so, but anyways, he actually did want to answer that lady's question. And we know this because 48 hours later, somebody asked him on Twitter, why don't you make a decentralized Twitter? To oversimplify. And Jack's response was, yeah, we're gonna. It's only a matter of time. And that a decentralized Twitter, which by the way, Jack has two interests in life, Twitter and Bitcoin. And if he is making a decentralized Twitter, what do you think he's going to do about Bitcoin? So if he's going to put, and if he understands the power and the importance of decentralization, which he clearly does, and he's saying it's only a matter of time before Twitter becomes decentralized, then wouldn't it make sense he also wants Bitcoin to be decentralized? Because he really seems like a Satoshi apostle, no pun intended. He's certainly starting to look like one, actually, starting to dress like one.
Would he kind of rail against the whole
oh
narrative
boy,
of
Dave,
central
you just
banks?
fell into the whole fucking rabbit hole. Watch this. So 48 hours ago,
Exactly.
the Nigerian government just came out and said, we have plans for our own central bank digital currency. Minutes later, Jack Dorsey sends out a very mysterious tweet of the Nigerian flag handshaking Bitcoin, saying, don't go for the Nigerian bank central bank digital currency, which you're right. You just connected the dots, Dave. Clearly, he's implicating and implying that Nigeria should go with the decentralized Bitcoin route. Now, it gets more interesting because just an hour ago, for those who missed it, we had something truly miraculous happen on stage here. Mbwana, who joins us regularly, and now Maria wants to jump in. Welcome, Maria. Mbwana invited his friend from Tanzania on stage named Trust, who's still on stage with us. And Trust said, by the way, Tanzania president today, in the last few hours, just announced that she would like Tanzania to embrace cryptocurrency, that this is the future and we need to embrace the future.
Is it Jones or Trust? Jones, right?
Oh,
Jones,
sorry,
yeah,
it was
Jones, not
Jones.
Trust,
I'm
but
sorry,
Trust
you're right. It
understands
was
good
Jones. Thank
context,
you.
so
Thank you,
good.
Cheryl. So Jones from Tanzania jumps on stage and says, yeah, our president just announced we want to get into crypto. And here's where it gets really interesting, because I posed the question: how would this physically, technologically manifest itself if they're going to do crypto in Tanzania? Because Tanzania, like many African countries, does payments through mobile money, which is tied to the telecoms, right? Who enable these transactions to happen on the phones. And I said, do those transactions, do those mobile money accounts enable crypto transactions? And the answer was no, they don't. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so they would need some other kind of. In fact, they're not really able to or allowed to. Regulatory wise, they wouldn't be allowed to. Okay, so there would need to be some other kind of third party solution, some kind of wallet to enable these crypto solutions. And it turns out, according to Jones, that Jack Dorsey is pushing to have crypto wallets in Africa. And that's where it gets really interesting, because if he's pushing the Bitcoin point of non-central bank digital currencies in Africa, and he is also providing the technical ability to do it, he's now got a sort of invested, or kind of a conflict of interest here in meddling in international politics by suggesting that they
Yeah,
do this because he's providing the solution for it. And he also revealed at that Miami event that he's also going to have a hardware wallet, which truly speaks to a more decentralized approach.
this is yeah. And there's a theme, there's a global theme going on, because also if you look at what happened in Lebanon, I tweeted out, I think yesterday, the currency
Yeah,
drops to a new low, financial meltdown deepens. So it's like these global
right.
crises going on within countries. And if you really want to understand this, right, for those who want to kind of do a bit of research on it. I've just tweeted Eric Weinstein, and he talks about the kind of macroeconomic stuff and about gauge theory and about the CPI inflation. Like it is really fascinating. Even if you don't like Eric Weinstein, he gets a good grilling from these guys. But you will then fully understand the printing of money, the kind of these macro concepts. He talks about the different economists, about Condiment, about the old school guys. It is amazing. Why would I say you should spend an hour of your time doing that? Because you will read headlines in a completely different light. So yeah, I just commend it to you. I've tweeted
So
it
this
to
is where
Tiffany's
people
around the
need
world.
to pay close attention to what's going to happen in the next 48 hours, because literally this could be a very important 48 hours for the planet Earth. Why do I sound so crazy here? Here's why. Because with ever since the El Salvadorian president made the announcement that he's going into Bitcoin, and the government voted it in. It's official. The government is recognizing Bitcoin as an official legal tender of El Salvador. And now Cuba and Mexico and Nicaragua have all chimed in on that topic. And now you've got in Africa, Jack making his statements. You've got Tanzania making their statements. It will be very, very interesting if in the next 48 hours you get other developing regions, either South America, Central America, African leaders making comments about Bitcoin, because
Yeah, and
yeah,
on your first question, maybe Jack sees himself as a bit of a 2021 thug Jesus, right? Because he's in effect overturning the tables of the money changers and kicking over the benches of the
and
dove
and
sellers.
the political system too, right? He has the ability
Oh yeah.
to control. I mean, so he's controlling both the political realms, the financial realm. So he is Jesus for the commoner.
I do like a bit of Jesus. By the way, he was a thug. He did not like the Pharisees. He would not like, we were talking about the strong men who like basically say they're going to get out of power. They're in effect the Pharisees. And, if you read any of the New Testament, you'll find out that Jesus didn't really have much to say, good things to say about the Pharisees, but he did hang around with prostitutes and alcoholics and those who were
so there's
demon
hope for you
possessed,
and me
for the
after all,
record.
David.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Tyler.
yes.
Tyler, I just went down the rabbit hole a little bit further, and
Amy,
I found
I'm
some
not even sure
interesting
there's
research
actual
that
any more. I can't believe it can go much deeper.
there is.
We've
I'm
come
giving
up
you the
with the point
country.
that
I'm giving you
Satoshi
the
and Jack
country.
Dorsey are actual Jesus, and you're saying you've gone deeper.
She's going to go all the way to the other side of Earth.
Are the, wait.
She's
Are the
going to the
UFOs
core.
somehow
Exactly.
involved, Amy?
You never know, they might, but I actually this one's more on the countryside. Gabriel Silva, the deputy to the National Assembly of Panama, has already reposted one of Bukele's tweets and announced he's looking to draft a proposal to put his parliamentary colleagues in line with what they did. He said, Panama cannot be left behind. If we want to be a true technology and entrepreneurship hub, we have to support cryptocurrencies. And that came from Gabriela Silva, who is the National Assembly of Panama. So this is where it's going to be very, 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 I think Central America is going to go next.
Yeah.
I
Not
mean,
South America, Central.
look at what's happening. This is the dollar hegemon facing headwinds. This is the Belt and Road Initiative facing headwinds.
Yeah.
It's like the prom where, like, you know, you think the two popular kids are gonna be going at it, and then the nerds like gather the votes
Exactly.
and win the high school prom. You know.
I love it. Exactly. That was it, Tyler. So the aliens, not, but
Chris. So either that, or is because these crypto guys made a lot of money in the last 18 months. Either someone is just walking around with a lot of these cryptos going around these Latin American countries, you know, bribing them, you know, in a way that because look, I mean, COVID, right? But now the economies are coming back. The travel has been cut down. A lot of these economies mainly depend on, you know, travels, and the interest rates in US is going to go higher. A lot of these debts, these emerging
Yeah, I
markets
mean,
holding on to, are demanding.
my mom's a restaurateur in LA, like at LAX. She's got this Mongolian barbecue. Sorry for the plug. I'll give you the
yummy.
Bitcoin. But she told me today her meat prices literally
Chris, is this the one
doubled in a week.
in?
You know,
Exactly.
Are you
like
in
that's
where
not
in
So,
tenable.
Koreatown? Where's the
so
Mongolian barbecue?
Uh, it's
Okay,
in
okay.
Westchester, right next to the
All right.
airport. It's Three
Okay.
Flames. It's been there forever.
I'll hit it.
Plug
But
it, man.
I
Plug
will
it.
be there next
just
This is
time I'm
good.
adding
in
in
town.
on the Panama side, though.
Go ahead, Fiona.
Fiona's saying something.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry,
Hold on,
you know,
Kieran.
I
Go
we
think
ahead,
a
have
Fiona.
lot of
got our
Go
drones.
ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have some of our drone and forest conservation projects going deep in the jungles of Panama, but you know, no pun intended. Nobody's paying for the water and nobody's paying their taxes. And here's the question: is the Panama Canal salt or freshwater?
Salt.
Great question.
Both.
fresh.
It's there you go. It's fresh. So who's paying for all the
Exactly.
mess of what we're taking out? Why are they not reforesting? And since it's got all these tax-free zones, it's going to really thrive on crypto because, you know, Walmart or other groups have like 6% of their ships. Amazon, I think it's 9 or 10% of the ships that go through the canal are between Costco,
Wow.
Amazon, and Walmart. So, you know, you've got to think about how are
Preach.
they going to pay it off, hint, hint, or not. But also, you know, if we do get a cryptocurrency moving through there, you know, there's a lot of money that hasn't been collected. And I'm just interested to replant and reforest.
Fiona's actually really spot on. And I know Kieran wants to say something, but there's another component to this, which I tweeted out this morning. I think it was about inflation and stuff like that. Fiona's point is really valid. There's a lot of lucrative natural resources in regions where people are now going after balls to the wall. Part my French. They are, because look, Tyler, you said it yourself. Thailand is like now kind of pushing out sort of the backpackers that don't really add any value to the economy in Thailand. And tourism doesn't mean crap because we have the nicer beaches and stuff like that. And quite frankly, it's not like Americans or internationals that come in really add value, that they take care of the region. And Tyler, you've said this yourself about Thailand and Bali and the impact of the Russian and the
tourism that comes in. So in some ways, I'm kind of thinking to myself, maybe these people are just taking back what's rightfully their own sovereign country, to take care of it and to nurture it and to make it something that is more beautiful so that they can be proud of what's being presented. Because quite frankly, when tourists come in, they tend to go to these regions because it's cheap, the women are beautiful, and they could get away with certain things that they can't get away in their own country. So at the end of the day, come on, let's be a little bit more realistic and transparent about why first world go to these regions, because I'm a proud Latina, and at the end of the day, I'm 100% supporting that Central America goes down this path, because it's also a way for them to deal with inflation and the fact that they're not getting tourism in, but it does allow them to generate their own economy and build it up. And I think people also tend to start pointing out the nefarious things, but come on, let's be realistic. There's been money laundering for decades, years, and centuries. Don't pin it on the Latin American people or the African people. Don't do that. That's a little
But
bit
there's
déclassé,
also
in my opinion.
the
In my opinion.
I support
yeah,
Thank you, Amy.
yeah.
100%. Thanks so
Sorry,
much, Amy.
Kieran, go ahead.
You're welcome.
Now, one of the things that people forget is that, we had the longest period where the humans stopped killing each other through war, all right? And people forget, people tend to have this romantic idea that when you have this control of money and, they think this kind of there is actually a decentralization. Look, Bitcoin is not decentralized. There's about 1,000 people owns about 40% of the, Bitcoin. Early miners and whales and exchanges, they hold, you can go into it, people will say, no, it's not that. That's not the number. There's about 1,000 people, they can move the market. And we are seeing that. Look, I mean, this weekend, Tesla, Elon Musk talks about it, moves, 10%. And imagine if you're someone in El Salvador, holding on to $1,000, and he just lost when he went to bed on Friday. He woke up on Monday morning. He lost 10% of his wealth. And come on, so the thing is, it's not about technology is great. Let's talk about blockchain. Crypto, the consensus mechanism. We talk about all this, delegated proof of stake and moving into different, consensus mechanism will save energy and all of that stuff. The energy that we're talking about is to cow dunks. And what I heard in the last 2 weeks since Elon Musk talking about green energy is volcano, cow shit, horse shit, and manure. Come on, let's just try and get a bit more creative in this space, right? In terms of Bitcoin and energy for a start, before we think about how we should be giving the power of money into hands where we can be killing each other. This is the longest period we had peace, where humans didn't go into war, killing millions and millions of people. Okay, we had pandemic, yes, and government's been there. They had the backstop. They have, saved a lot of people's lives by providing, printing a lot of money, and they can't suck that money out of the system. We have learned a lot of lessons over the last 100 years through many crises. Know how to, yes, the system can be improved. The financial system, the current system, yes, absolutely. But guys, we learned a lot of lessons. Where we are, it's a better place than giving into these kinds of decentralized geeks like
Kieran?
Jack Dorsey, and it makes no sense.
Kieran?
Okay, can I make a
I,
comment?
I
I agree
understand that
with
it makes
Kiran.
no
We
sense,
don't want
Kieran.
chaos.
However,
We
the
want
reality of
stability. We don't want
Hold on,
chaos. We
Cheryl.
want
Cheryl.
stability.
the
Yeah, Cheryl, please go ahead, Cheryl.
the part of it that
No,
Kieran, I
I want
acknowledge
Cheryl
what
to.
Yeah,
I,
Cheryl's just
sorry.
1 second, Amy. Just Cheryl, please go ahead.
I say I agree with Kiran totally. We do not want chaos. We want stability in our
okay.
life.
MA.
To that point, civility only comes where people are treated equally. And I'm sorry, as a Hispanic that's been literally going through this growing up in the projects, I'm very, very sorry, but there's a lot of powers that be that are entitled and have kept marginalized people down for way too many decades and centuries. And I'm really, really sorry for that, but not sorry. Because at the end of the day, people could sit in their ivory towers and judge from the stands someone else's life, but until you've experienced it yourself, I would probably go down and spend a week in the worst neighborhood where you have to fight for yourself and your own things and your own food and your basic needs. Then come back and tell me how you feel. Because I would probably be hard pressed to believe if you would survive that week. Because at the end of the day, that is what we're dealing with. There's not civility. Look at the stuff that's going on in Africa. Look at the stuff that's going on in China. Look at the stuff that's going on in Argentina and Venezuela. You call that civility? You call that people not killing each other? I'm sorry.
No,
That's
no,
a
no,
little
no,
bit
no,
of
no. No,
hypocrisy in
hang
my
on, hang
Can
on.
opinion.
I
I
make
got
a
it. I
Let,
got
let,
it.
comment?
I
let,
got
let
it.
me
I
let
know
me
what Kieran's talking about. He's talking about world war level of killings, is what
Can I
he's referring to.
may,
Absolutely,
Bro,
Yeah,
let me quickly
absolutely,
say
may
yeah.
I
absolutely.
say
something.
something?
Should I say
Go ahead.
something?
Go ahead, Trust.
Okay.
Go ahead,
So
Trust.
should I
Go ahead.
hold on? I should go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I hear what Karen is talking about, right? And it makes absolute sense. But this is where I disagree with Karen, right? I think that the world we live in today, where I don't know, like the stats already show that the 99% of wealth, which was like physical wealth, were controlled by just 1% of population, which is terrible, right? That access and that because if you reside in African countries and I don't know, maybe Latin American countries or Central American countries, you realize that the instability of the political scene affects the lives of people around, right? If you agree that that is true, if you agree that that impedes global trade, for example, me in Nigeria being a businessman, I can equally compete with the person on the same level, the same trade with me in, let's say, UK or US. He's likely to whoop my ass because I don't have that purchasing power because of my instability in my own country, right? I think it is important for us to then take away the resource that human need for survival, which is finances, economic stability. I think it is important you take that away from the political instability that we've not found a way to resolve, right? To the extent why we've not found a way to resolve that political instability, I think it is wrong to then leave people's means of livelihood in in that state of instability. I think in a world where it is decentralized, you have a situation where I now can control my life to a reasonable degree. And I get what it says about Elon Musk, but that is possible. Why? Because it hasn't been accepted. So we're still at the brink. Oh, should we or should we not? So when someone that, oh, maybe you respect in the business, we say, oh, no, I'm not trusting it. There is a possibility. Then you say, okay, I'm not also trusting it. But in a situation where it is globally accepted and globally trusted, it is almost impossible to then say, oh, one person just tweets one day and say, oh, because you can't say you're not buying into it because that is what you have to trade anyways. So you can't say you're not buying. So all that is needed for that to stop is global acceptance. To the extent whereby there is global acceptance, there won't be one person controlling the narrative from his bedroom or whatever. Better than living lives of millions and millions of people in political instability. Trust is done talking.
Can I make a
So
comment?
Tyler,
One
Can I
second,
add
LS. We'll go
something?
Cheryl and then LS, and then we got to wrap because I have a phone call in 9 minutes. Go ahead, Cheryl, real quick.
Okay, Singapore gained independence in 1965. We have no natural resources. Most of the people are uneducated. But we turned from nothing to developed country in less than 3 generations. Please go and see what Singapore has done. We are very small, I know, but use it as an incubator. Just see what we have done. There's a reason why Singaporeans trust the governance. Because we start from nothing in 1965 when we are forced out of Malaysia with no natural resources, not even water, and we became somebody after three generations.
Okay, thank you, LS.
And thank you, Tyler, and everyone. I joined late, so let me be quick. Cheryl, to your point on the data point, Singapore, which I've been to, part of that providence was the trade, and it with China specifically, because the last 30 years, China was growing, and I've been to both, and so it's economics. But I agree, Singapore put themselves out of the bootstraps. To Trust's point, and everyone, I apologize, I came late, and I just came on stage, so I know Tyler needs to wrap, and Kyle. But regarding this economics, which is my focus, I think there is a paradigm shift. We need to work together. We need to be accountable to everything. And it doesn't mean speculative currencies, but I think we're just going to a convergence. And I was in a quantum room earlier on this. And all I would say is that economically, the world will change. And for Quran, we're just shifting. Because when you look at the global debt system, and I'm not talking about the U.S., our GDP, gross domestic product, which used to be gross production product, okay, they changed it, was around 70 trillion or 80 trillion. We're somewhere
What's the
around, and
point
I
you
have the
want to make?
math calculated, about 400 trillion. So we can never pay it back. And we're going to need to do what, and some have talked about this. We're going to do another Britain's Woods. We're going to reset the economic system globally. And I believe that's coming. And I believe it will involve something of crypto, but not.
No,
Ellis,
he got
Tyler
it. That
says you got to land the
he
plane
just
because he's
made
got
he
to
just
go
made the
really
I'm
point. I
soon.
landing.
got it.
I'm landing. I'm
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
got
landing.
it. He
Oh,
just
We
did.
yeah,
we
I'm
have
Okay.
landing. I'm
All
touchdown.
right.
landing. I'm
We have
landing. Thank you,
touchdown.
Cal. Thank you.
I got it.
Yeah, we
Okay, good.
touched down. And
Good.
it's not going to only be crypto, but
Yeah,
it will be the technology.
you
But
got it.
thank you,
We
Cal
got you.
and
No, no, no,
You
sorry.
Tyler,
got it.
because you're my big
You
brothers
got it.
and you
You
guys
No,
help
you
me to
got
landed.
it.
stay
We all
focused.
landed safely, and thank you for flying LS Airlines. We got.
That's good. Thanks
No,
so much
no,
for
no,
being
Stop
no.
here,
You
making
Ellis.
you
fun of me.
landed it. Yeah, yeah.
No, no,
It
no.
was a
We
good
love
point.
you here. We love you here. And I
So
wasn't
Ty,
listening as
Yeah,
intently.
yeah.
You were landing it. So
Go ahead.
thanks.
I have one headline to go, and we've got 4 minutes left. So that means we have 2 minutes. Yeah,
Ty-
2 minutes.
Tyler,
You
can
can
I
take
say
one of
one
them.
thing,
Go.
please?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I just want to jump in.
Okay. I just would like, Amy, I'm with you 100%. I just think people should kind of step back and look at short-term history here. I'm not going to name the individual, but there was someone that tried to come up with a one currency for Africa, and we know what happened to him. But I think that Dorsey and his strive to have a wallet in Africa is taking the playbook from somebody else, and maybe he may be able to pull it
Whoa.
off. That's all I got to say. My
so
name
if
is
I can,
Irvin. Thank
Hold
you.
on, Kieran.
if I can add to
We
that,
have a
look,
queue
guys.
going real quick. It was Willie and Marvin, and then
Marvin.
Kieran. I'll give you the last word. Go ahead, Marvin and Willie and Kieran.
When you look, I can only speak for Nicaragua, but when you look at governments like Nicaragua, regardless of their adoption of technology, their leadership and their political views will always override where the country is. So I want to point directly at education and their desire to not educate their community.
Willie.
Yeah, just shortly, because it was about politics and blockchain and how it will rule the world or not. And I'm on the stability side, just an opinion. And yesterday we had a little room about the CCP and the free world. And just consider this context that actually for transfer, in my position, in my opinion, blockchain, or to be more precise, the Bitcoin as a transaction tool is not proven to be good. It's mostly speculative, and there's the power law, Google for the power law and blockchain or Bitcoin, and as Carl said, it could be really for to increase instability all over the world, despite the good
Yeah. So we
intentions.
need a
I don't
sandbox
doubt.
like El
Thank you.
Salvador, and we need the technologists to continue to innovate, which thank God they are. And Kieran, sorry.
So Tyler, I think just to add to the point, I think earlier in the session, you talked about how leaders around the world, we're going to see Trump again, right? Next 10, 20 years, we will see Trump again. As you know, he's going to be trying for the 2024. In the corporate world, Cal talked about, yes, there are people coming in, short-term, shareholders capitalism, driving, not looking in the values. I think what we need to do is a lot of the conversation we're talking about this crypto is again, trying to put the screwdriver into every hole. There's a lesson that we can learn from Singapore. The way that Singapore, got to where it is that, just to sum it up in 30 seconds, is that they had this thing called the MPH, which is the meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty, right? There's a guy called Kishore Magwani at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. He talks about this a lot because he saw how the Singapore, the rise. I know there was a lot of problem in terms of chewing gum, and we can go into all of that stuff. What we need to do is, look, Nigeria is a democracy. Sri Lanka is a democratic country. China, we see since 2000 they've taken 800 million people into middle class. Just think about that. That's three times the U.S. population if you just kind of round, if you put the rounding error into it. So there is the way the world is going. There is progress. We can see a huge change. Yes, what we need to do is we need to look at this MPH approach to each country. So we need to hold our leaders accountable. We need to be careful who we elect, and just get to I think we need to apply that, and we need to make these leaders honest and and pragmatic in the way they approach to the country. I think this is the kind of stuff we need to be talking about. Not trying to put crypto as the solution to bring the unbanked. If China can bring 800 million people in 20 years, trust me, we can bring that 2 billion people, the unbanked, and then the people that we're talking about, Latin America, through all the innovation, all the progress that we made. I don't think crypto is the solution.
Okay, so last
Thank you, Carl.
headline of the day for this meeting, because we meet later depending on your time zone, and we hope you join us. Click on the title of the room to see the schedule, and do follow the Tech News Club. Make your mama proud. But the last headline is from Forbes, and it's a rather optimistic one that I wanted to leave everyone on a happy note, although it's bittersweet. It's that VCs have invested $1.5 billion into mental health startups in 2020, a record high, and 5.5 times more than they did in 2016. So this is clearly a strong indicator that a lot of investments going into mental health. And again, that's bittersweet. It's clearly maybe because there's more of a need but also more of a recognition. It's a huge new field, a lot of opportunity. And I have a friend who's in that space, so I'll try and invite them to join us all about that. So thank you for joining us at Tech News Around the World. We'll meet again in 5.5 hours. I hope you can join us then or next time, whenever you can. Thank you to everybody for your comments and input. And Jack Dorsey is